representing Rocky Top, Tennessee, also known as Knoxville, Tennessee, where today over 104,000 college football fans have assembled at historic Neyland Stadium to watch the Fresno State Bulldogs take on the 16th-ranked Volunteers of Tennessee as ESPN celebrates its 20th anniversary of covering college football with a 5-day, 13-game Labor Day weekend presented by Rust-Oleum Epoxy Shield. Hello, everyone. I'm Jerry Punch, along with Mike Mayock and Dave Ryan. Glad to have you with us here at Rocky Top, Tennessee. Well, 2002 was a rocky year for Rocky Top fans because they ended the year with 8-5 record, which included what they considered to be an embarrassing loss to Maryland in the Peach Bowl. They focused on the 3 R's since that time. The first R, repair their wounded pride, rediscover what they call Tennessee toughness, and retaliate against those who kicked them when they were down. And all that means that Philip Fulmer had to rebuild around this man right here, senior quarterback Casey Clausen, who despite injuries last year led the SEC in completion percentage. And Mike Mayock, that rebuilding began 8 months ago at a key position called wide receiver.
Yeah, and the cupboard was really bare at good old wide receiver university here. So what Tennessee decided to do is take 2 impact athletes from different positions and move them to wide receiver. Safety Mark Jones will start at 1 wide out, but he'll also play defense in nickel situations. And backup quarterback James Banks, well, he's the big play athlete that Casey Clausen covets.
Fresno State won 9 games a year ago, but they would like to revisit the 2001 season when they began the year with a healthy Bernard Berrien and opened up with wins over Colorado, Oregon State, and Wisconsin on the road. Now, Bernard Berrien is back at 100%, but their quarterback last year, Paul Pinniger, is not.
Yeah, Pinniger's hurt. He will not play. But Jeff Grady's a 5th-year starter. He earned the starting job last year until he was injured. And, Doc, trust me, I believe there will be no drop-off at the quarterback position. This guy's talented. He'll get them in the right protections, and he will make the correct decisions.
And we've got a special treat for you, fans. Sometime during this game, we're going to be joined by 2 of the greatest ever wear the uniforms at Fresno State and Tennessee. Their former quarterback, David Carr, and Peyton Manning, who's now with the Indianapolis Colts. When we come back, we'll kick it off from Rocky Top. Thank you, Matt. The 3rd largest arena in all of college football, Neyland Stadium, and the prevailing color today, you guessed it, Tennessee orange, and the bulk of this 104,000-plus crowd are locally here from the Rocky Top area, and a small throng of fans to support the Fresno State Bulldogs that come all the way from the West Coast. And you can imagine right now that the University of Tennessee is about to enter as the band separates and makes the block T. Here come the Volunteers. Year head coach Philip Fulmer leads his team on, trying to retaliate and recover from what everyone on this team focused was a disappointing ending to the 2002 season and a 27-point margin of defeat in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl.
You know, Doc, I did a lot of Tennessee games over the years, 96, 97, 98. And it was a completely different football team last year than the one in the late 90s.
And across the field, what a job this man has done for Fresno State. Pat Hill, 7th year as a head coach, 4 consecutive bowl games, a 1999 WAC title, a ranking as high as 8th in 2001 when they were unbeaten late in the year, and they were 2 plays away from taking this team to the Fiesta Bowl. The coaches are out, the teams are out. Let's check with the 3rd member of our broadcast team on the field. Here's Dave Ryan.
All right, Doc, thanks so much. Tennessee football is making some history today. For the first time since 1944, a volunteer team will have captains who are not seniors. A couple of juniors are going to be captains this year. And Kevin Brett, the linebacker, and Michael Munoz, the offensive tackle. It goes back to February when the team had a vote, and it was just before spring ball when they were elected captains. Head coach Phil Fulmer opened up the vote to non-seniors because, guys, he had what he called last year a black hole in leadership. He just didn't have what he wanted in terms of the chemistry. And, guys, they were tested early. During summer workouts, a couple of guys, actually some players, missed some workouts. And the captains, including the 2 non-seniors, held a team meeting without the coaches even knowing about it and ironed out the problem on their own. So, obviously, leadership pointed in the right direction here at Tennessee, Doc.
And, Dave, when they came back from that bowl game in Atlanta, the players called a meeting. And among those who were really calling a meeting with some of those juniors you talked about, Munoz and Kevin Burnett, and they wanted to be able to focus. They felt that there wasn't very much toughness when they played Maryland. Not taking anything away from the Terrapins. They felt they lost their focus late in the year. Some of the seniors a year ago weren't providing the leadership, and Philip Fulmer, to his credit, said, you know what, we're going to find leaders wherever we can find them. We've got 4 of our 6 captains who are seniors and 2 juniors who are captains there. There is Michael Munoz, son of Anthony Munoz, the All-Pro for 13 years. There's the T you talk about for Tennessee traditions. 2 national titles, one of which came in '98 for Philip Fulmer's bunch. 13 SEC championship, bowl appearances, bowl victories, 64 All-Americans.
And don't underestimate the value of leadership. And that's something that was lacking last year, as Dave said. Big day today to reestablish dominance.
Brett Vizentainer will kick it off. Fresno won the toss, deferred. Tennessee is lucky to receive. And Corey Larkins, what a speedster is he. The junior out of Opelika, Alabama, set to receive here as we are about to be underway here at Rocky Top, Tennessee. Neyland Stadium. Larkins a yard deep in his own end zone. Has a bit of an opening up over the 20, 25. That's where the Volunteers will take over. Senior quarterback Casey Clausen is the trigger man for this Tennessee offense. A year ago, despite injuries and questionable receivers, he led the SEC in completion rate and currently stands second behind, guess who? Peyton Manning in the all-time passing charts here at Tennessee.
And Jerry, this season will define the career of Casey Clausen. It's been up, it's been down. He was banged up a year ago. He's 24-7 as a starter. This is his year.
They want to be physical. They want to turn back the clock to 2000 and 2001, where they could dictate offensively by running the football. It's exactly what they do. As Cedric Houston gets the first handoff and is stopped for no gain. The supporting cast we mentioned, tailback Cedric Houston, who was banged up with a thigh and thumb injury a year ago, but still rushed for almost 800 yards. Jones and Brown, the receivers there, hope to rectify the woes of catching passes a year ago. And up front, the offensive line, as we told you a moment ago, led by the All-American left tackle, Michael Munoz.
Casey's changing the play now. 3 wide, no tight end.
First pass, and it's batted away, intended for Banks there. The former quarterback.
Broken up.
Take a look again, and we show you some of the supporting cast for Tennessee. Their tailbacks and receivers. There's Cedric Houston. There's Brown and Jones, the 2 men who hope to be able to rectify the problems of pass catching they had last year. Victor McClure, the converted offensive lineman. Up front, a veteran offensive line. Munoz, the All-American at left tackle, of course, and Herrera Wells, the Remington Awards candidate. A very strong offensive line. In fact, Philip Fulmer says this may be the best line we've had since 1994.
You got to prove it first,
They have yet to gain a yard in 2 plays. 3rd and 10 as Clausen looks over the middle, has a receiver, and that should be good enough for the first down for Tennessee. Take a look at the Fresno State defense up front. Nose tackle, junior college All-American Danielle Booker. They wanted him at Tennessee. They wanted him at A&M. He came to Fresno State. Linebackers, 5th-year senior Bryce McGill, an all-WAC selection a year ago. In the secondary, strong safety James Sanders, a freshman All-American, but they are without Kendall Edwards, their best cornerback, who stayed home because his wife was expecting a baby over the weekend. And Fresno State head coach Pat Hill said, yes, sir, you're staying home. Reception upfield. A bullet of a pass out to Mark Jones. And Tennessee now beginning to move the football through the air. 2 passes and 2 consecutive first down.
And think about it, Jerry. There's 3 pass attempts, and 2 of them have been to converted quarterback James Banks, and the 3rd one to Mark Jones. Exactly what we talked about in the open, trying to get athletes in space with a chance to make a play.
Yard gain on that completion from Clausen to Jones. They want to establish the run game this time. Big hole, left side over Munoz. And Cedric Houston rumbles down inside the 45.
Physical football starts at the point of attack, and the fullback's got to make a block. Watch the block right here on the linebacker by the fullback, Troy Fleming. Point of attack, he wins with the cut block, and there's the big hole for the tailback.
Fresno State coaches said we must stop the run, and they are going to pack 8, now 9 in the box to try to stop the run, and that will prompt Casey Clausen to change the play at the line of scrimmage. Second and a couple in Bulldog territory. Has a receiver upfield, and they will count the catch.
Wow, I don't know if he's in.
I question it. Looked like he might have had 1 foot out, but inside the 10-yard line. A 36-yard completion by Clausen.
But there's that athletic ability we're talking about. They didn't have that a year ago. Pat Hill saying it's one-on-one coverage. Let's see if Banks gets 1 foot in and possession. Yes, he does.
Our apologies.
That's a good call.
Our apologies to the SEC officials. He did have a foot in. Pat Hill didn't believe it either. The Fresno State head coach.
Hey, Doc, that's a big-time play right there, man.
James Banks, that is only the second catch he's ever made as a college wide receiver. The first one came to play before, by the way.
Here comes a change, line of scrimmage.
First and goal inside the 10, and
I think they're going to rule no interference because it was an uncatchable ball.
Great effort there by the defensive back to keep the inexperienced Banks from being able to fight through into the end zone.
Kind of interesting. Fresno is challenging the wide receivers, bump and run coverage. You can see the contact right there. Banks is looking at the ref. Hey, give me the call. There's the contact, folks. But the ref says that isn't no opportunity to catch the football, so he will not throw the flag.
Great effort by Richard Marshall, the redshirt freshman quarterback. 8th play of the drive. Clausen sidesteps a possible sack, dumps it off inside. That's Banks. 5-yard line, touchdown, Tennessee.
Jerry, that was Banks, and more Banks on that play, but Casey Clausen did a great job making the blitzing linebacker miss him.
9-play drive, 76 yards, 2 minutes and 34 seconds to open this football game, and James Wilhoit hopes to kick his first extra point in his college career. It is up and good, and James Banks, the former quarterback out of Indianapolis, puts on a clinic. Clausen sidesteps it. Banks takes the toss. It is 7-0 Volunteers. 7-0 Tennessee on the opening drive. It was quarterback to quarterback for the points.
Blitz right here. Great job by Clausen. Gets him airborne, dumps it off the Banks. Watch the block right over here, folks. Jonathan Wade knocks his own helmet off. 2 great blocks. Touchdown Tennessee, and Casey Clausen's a little bit excited.
And they question Jonathan Wade's toughness. He's a track star. They wondered how tough is he? Well, he blocking very unselfishly there. Springs the receiver / quarterback loose for 6. There's the scoring drive as Philip Newman will kick it off for Tennessee. And Bernard Berrien, the ever-dangerous one, and Adam Jennings deep. Remember, Berrien missed all but a quarter a year ago, and they will definitely try to kick it away from him. In fact, they will kick it out of bounds, and that will give pretty good field position to Fresno State on their opening offensive possession.
We'll get good field position here, Jerry.
Fraction, kick out of bounds by the kicking team. The ball will be placed at the 55-yard line. First down.
There's a look at Jeff Grady, the 5th-year senior who replaced the freshman of the year in the conference a year ago, Paul Pinnaker. We mentioned he had torn a pectoral muscle 10 days ago, will not play. Grady began as a starter a year ago, was injured against Wisconsin and later on against Oregon State, and then replaced by Pinnaker. Now he replaces Pinnaker. Grady, a veteran of running this offense. Coaches say he may know it even better than Pinnaker. Here's a quick swing pass to Berrien, and he gets a couple of yards at most. The skill positions for Fresno State, they are loaded. The Davis brothers, Rodney, set a single-season rushing record in 2002. Marquet, his older brother, the leading receiver a year ago. The electrifying Bernard Berrien. Up front, though, the offensive line, 4 of 5 offensive linemen have never made a Division I football game start, and that's a major cause of concern, Mike.
Yeah, I think the key to Fresno's offense today is whether or not that offensive line can stand up to pressure.
Opening possession for the Bulldogs of Fresno State. Rifle pass to Marion. Marion dodges a couple of tacklers and gets another yard or so. It'll still be shy of the first down. Take a look at the volunteer defense. Their punt four from a year ago are all gone. The big concern is inside at the defensive tackle spot. Jones and Dickerson are brand new. They're wondering how they'll play against the run. Linebackers Simon and Peace both coming back from ankle injuries a year ago. And in the secondary, Baker and Greer are the Thorpe Award candidates. Wilson, the top returning tackle from the 2002 team. Third and a couple for Fresno State. Back, gets some pressure and overthrows the intended receiver. Throwing it upfield for Kevin Simon, brings pressure on him. And that was Rodney Davis, the running back he was trying to get the football to. And that'll bring up a punting situation for the Bulldogs of Fresno State.
And Davis was open. The problem is that offensive line couldn't protect against the blitz. The result was a high pass by the quarterback Grady.
Mike Lingua is the new punter for the Bulldogs, replacing a two-time WAC all-conference player, Jason Simpson, a year ago. Mark Jones, the defensive back, receiver, and return man for Tennessee, is deep. A high floater, and Jones will call for the fair catch at about the 26-yard line. So the Volunteers of Tennessee will get it for the second time on offense. The first time they had it, they went 9 plays for 76 yards and put 7 on the board. And some of the scenery just outside of historic Neyland Stadium here. We are about 500 yards from the lazy Tennessee River. Only 2 places in the country where you can actually come by boat and watch college football. It is here at Knoxville and out in Washington where the Huskies are, but they're actually at Ohio State tonight. Second offensive possession for the Volunteers of Tennessee.
And it's interesting. Fresno's defensive backs, their corners are way off now.
Lawson looking upfield and a great catch. And no, they'll rule it incomplete. He couldn't quite come down with it. Let's check in back in the studio with Matt White. Matt?
All right, Jerry, Wisconsin has made a nice comeback at West Virginia. Anthony Davis from 1 yard out in a 17-all game. Changes that, 24-17. They're about ready to wrap it up at Morgantown. And a good one between Missouri and Illinois. Big 10, Big 12 battle. 15-14 game. Brad Smith rolls out, finds Darius Outlaw. The 2-point conversion was good. Mizzou hangs on.
How about a big one for Missouri? Big hole right side, dancing at Houston, and he's trying to escape the tackle. Can't get out of the grass. Cedric Houston brings his crowd on its feet. Great saving tackle by Brian Morris to left end.
Second time at the point of attack. Now, great job by Munoz on the left side. Good job by the fullback. Makes the cut in the hole now, and all of a sudden, Cedric Houston's in the secondary.
Houston had 4 consecutive 100-yard rushing games a year ago. Had only 16 yards the 4 games he tried to play with thigh injuries. And again, he will get the call. Big opening left side. And what you talked about last night and early this morning is this Tennessee offensive line starting to take its toll. And we told you that Philip Fulmer said they may be the best offensive line we've had here in about a decade.
And what they've done is they've gotten Fresno to back off a little bit. Watch the left side of the line right here. That's where the cutback will occur by Houston. Munoz sets up in a pass block, pushes the defensive end outside, and here comes the cutback right here. Herrera does his job at guard, like stealing.
Fresno State lost Nick Burley and Jason Stewart off that great defensive front that they had a year ago. Got a couple of junior college transfers, good ones that have come in. This time Houston will cut it back, has some running room. 20 inside the 20 and is chased down at about the 16. Let's check back in the studio again with Matt.
Taco Bell takes us to Nashville, Tennessee, where Ole Miss has been behind much of the day against Vanderbilt. Down 21-14 here. Eli Manning to Mike Espy, who somehow eludes the grasp. He gets in, and we are all tied up at 21 with time running out.
And that's one Eli Manning. Will be joined in the second half here by Peyton Manning, the all-time leading passer and one of the legends here in Tennessee. I'm sure Peyton is trying to get off the practice field in Indianapolis and watch the end of that one. and then give us a call. Cedric Houston again will get the call, and will gain about 4 down to the 12.
Jerry, you hate to say it's time to make a play for Fresno this early in the game, but down 7-0 on the first drive. They're 3 and out. Pat Hill knows that his defense has got to step up. Down 14-0 right here at Tennessee is not a good place to be with 107,000 people in the stands.
A year ago, Fresno State allowed only 160 yards a game rushing. We mentioned they've lost those 2 big guys in the middle. Trying to hold up with some replacements against a totally rebuilt offensive line for Tennessee. And a stop that time just shy of the first down marker.
Yeah, and Jerry, you made the point a minute ago about that offensive line, and they've gone over the left side, Munoz and Herrera, with a lot of help from their center, Scott Wells. And Munoz, 77, look at him. His father's a Hall of Fame guy, gets a lot of publicity. The guy I love when I watch him on tape is their center, Scott Wells. He's like a pit bull, never makes a mistake, makes all the calls in the middle of that line of scrimmage.
Wells making his 37th consecutive start here in the offensive line. They get inside, they try to bounce it out. Great defensive effort right up the middle. James Sanders from his strong safety spot stopped Houston in his tracks.
A weak side penetration in goal line and short yardage. Sanders blew through. Pat Hill's not afraid to come at any time from the left side of your screen. Bang. Like a dart comes James Sanders, their strong safety, untouched.
And it'll be 4th and a couple. That'll bring on James Wilhoit. Redshirt freshman place kicker, parade All-American out of high school. Has not been in a game situation to kick the field goal. It'll be his very first attempt at 26 yards. He had a 57-yarder here in the spring. And the whistles are blowing before they can get the kick off. We had some movement up front. And we'll hear from Thomas Ritter. Delay. So they'll add 5 yards to that kick by James Wilhoit, and he'll try it again.
Just what a freshman wants before his first shot, right?
To the snap. Delay game. Gets the offense. Remains 4th down.
And that drives a head coach crazy. Field goal team, Jerry, runs out in the field. You got to be kidding me. How can you run out of time?
This will be a 31-yard attempt. The young man we mentioned hit a 58-yarder as a senior in high school, a 57-yarder in the spring. And the kick is up, and this time he pulls it left, and that's exactly what drives Philip Fulmer and other head coaches crazy. A mistake up front. Delay a game cost them 5 yards and cost them 3 points, and now Pat Hill's loving the fact that has given him an opportunity to stop Tennessee.
Look at coach is talking to the holder and the kicker. That's just a dead pull. That's like a golfer with a 4-iron turning his hands through it. Let's take a look at the hold by Henderson. Look clean to me. Dead pull.
I think he's also telling Henderson and Wilhoit, you guys are the quarterbacks out there. When you see the clock clicking down, get a timeout. Let's not back away. And the ball on the ground, and looks like Fresno State may have gotten it back. Rodney Davis, their record-setting running back, jumps back on it. Let's check back into the studio with Matt.
Jerry, Mike Shula's debut as the Alabama head coach. South Florida into town in Birmingham, and the Bulls right to it. Ronnie Banks rolling, finding Brian Fisher in the end zone. 13-yard strike, and South Florida up early, 7-zip.
And Matt, I heard our buddies Lee Corso and Kirk Hersey's talking about watch for South Florida. Watch for USF. They have got a dangerous offense. Speaking of dangerous, they dump it out, and great defensive effort. Rodney Davis again. Jabari Greer up from the left cornerback spot to make the stop.
Grady took a huge hit. Made the right read. That weak side blitz, he threw it strong side, but boy, did he hang in there and take a hit.
We talked to Fresno State's offensive coordinator yesterday, Frank Signetti Jr., and they thought that they would be able to hold up pretty well on the perimeter with regard to the speed. The concern would be that young and inexperienced offensive line protecting the quarterback. This time, pretty good protection, but it breaks down quickly, and he will go down. Kevin Burnett. And listen to this crowd, because they know what this young man has gone through last year. He got to play part of a game, had have his knee totally reconstructed, and he's the young man that they chose as a captain, as a junior. And the crowd appreciates this young man coming on the field for the first time here in 2003. Mike Lingua set to kick it again. Freshman out of Canyon County, California. Mark Jones standing back at his own 40-yard line. And a high floater, fairly shallow kick. Jones will take it on his 41. That's it back, and he will be swallowed up at about the 47 by Adam Jennings. 7-0 Tennessee, as the 16th ranked Volunteers will head back to offense when we come back to Neyland Stadium in Knoxville. And we welcome you back to Knoxville, Tennessee, Neyland Stadium. I'm Jerry Punch, along with Mike Mayock and Dave Ryan. Glad to have you with us. Fresno State taking on the 16th ranked Volunteers of Tennessee. More college football coming your way tonight at 7:45 Eastern Time on ESPN. Rocky Mountain bragging rights are on the line as Bradley Van Pelt and the Colorado State Rams meet the Colorado Buffaloes at Invesco Field in Mile High in Denver. Then on ESPN2 at 9 Eastern, the Oregon Ducks head to Starkville to take on the Bulldogs of Jackie Sherrill and Mississippi State. Lots of action coming your way tonight. Third offensive possession for Tennessee. They've been in the red zone on their first two possessions. Pressure coming from outside. And Clausen throws it up and has it picked off in the secondary. Juan Dials picks it off and will head back up over the 40-yard line. And Clausen, feeling the pressure, Mike, just threw it up.
Yeah, and that's where Clausen and his wide receiver were not in sync. They had man-to-man coverage, no safety help. Clausen thought he was going to throw it up, but his receiver didn't make a break on the ball. Clausen with a 5-step drop, gets rid of the football off his back foot, takes a little pop. It's a ball that should not have been thrown. You can see down here the defensive back Dials has got Banks covered. It's not even close. That ball's got to be thrown away 10 yards over on the sideline.
And I'm sure they will talk, Randy Sanders and company will talk to Casey Clausen. A year ago, that was the concern. Clausen under duress made some poor decisions and cost them a lot of yardage and some possessions by throwing the ball at an ill time. This time over the middle, they dumped the pass off for Fresno State. Mike, if you're Fresno State and you go to the sidelines, you have trouble getting the ball to Bernard Berry and the receivers out on the perimeter. What do you try to do to get the offense on track?
Well, I think what they do better than most teams I've seen on tape is they get the ball to guys like Berry in space and let them make plays. And I think what you're going to see is a couple bubble screens, a couple different looks at screen packages with Davis Berrien and Mark A. Davis. Try and get those guys involved in the offense.
High formation. They put Berrien in motion, hand to the tailback, and he will be stopped at the line of scrimmage. And let's check in on the Fresno State sidelines with Dave Ryan.
Well, Doc and Mike, as you can imagine, a huge change in mood here on the Fresno State sideline. After the early touchdown scored by Tennessee, the atmosphere here incredible with so much noise, more than 105,000 people. It was difficult for the players to hear each other, and they're hanging their heads. But after the interception and the missed field goal by Wilhoit just before that, Fresno State appears a lot more pumped up and in a much better mood after the tough start, guys.
3rd and 4. Thank you, Dave. Exactly. A lot more emotion down there for the Bulldogs on their sidelines. They've been in these situations before, down in someone else's arena in front of a hostile crowd. Over the middle, and he can't block and get it there. Had a receiver open.
Yeah, he threw across his body. Jeff Grady did. He had a receiver wide open. You need to convert that. That's the 3rd consecutive 3-and-out for Fresno. That can't happen. I mean, they're fortunate. Pat Hill knows. They're fortunate they're only down 7-0 at this point.
A lot of pressure from Kevin Burnett, who had only practiced about 4 or 5 days in the whole fall camp. Mike Lingua back to punt. Has averaged over 36 yards on 2 thus far. His first one a 42-yarder. Mark Jones down inside his own 15. Floater again, a fairly short kick. Jones will take it to the 24, cuts back. There's a flag down, and he bounces off one tackler and scoots up for another 8 or 10 yards, but a flag down. Might have had a block in the back there about the 32 or 33-yard line. Got a hold on Tennessee, so it'll come back. Jones' effort will come back inside their 20.
Now think about it, Jared. Before the field goal, they have an ugly penalty because they run out of time. They kick the field goal after the penalty and miss it. That's a bad mistake. Philip Fulmer knows it. Now they get a good punt return. What happens? Negate it again.
During the return, holding team, 10-yard penalty.
So Tennessee's killing themselves.
Well, a lot of college football coming your way tomorrow at 3 Eastern on ESPN. Central Florida heads to Blacksburg in hopes of slowing down a Virginia Tech offense led by Kevin Jones. Then on ESPN2, catch the battle for Kentucky. Kentucky bragging rights, we should say. Hefty lefty Jared Lorenzen and the Kentucky Wildcats host the Louisville Cardinals at 6:30 Eastern. Two great ones coming your way tomorrow. Tennessee trying to reestablish the run game, and Cedric Houston gains about 12 as we head back to the studio in Matt Weiner.
All right, Jerry, Alabama down at home to South Florida, and the Bulls at midfield again. Ronnie Banks throwing, but it's off Huey Whitaker's hands into Charlie Peppers, and he's got nothing but green ahead of him. 50-yard return. We're tied at 7.
Got to believe it had been very quiet there in Alabama watching that one early as the local Crimson Tide trailing 7 now have tied it up. We have 7-zip here with Tennessee taking the opening possession on a 9-play 76-yard drive. You just joined our coverage. And that one's thrown behind the intended receiver, Jonathan Wade.
And you could see right there, Clausen knows again, that's another sloppy pass. He had Wade on the slant, threw it behind him. That's something the senior's got to be better at.
Casey Clausen, a Davey O'Brien Award candidate. We mentioned he led the SEC a year ago in completion percentage, over 62.5. MVP of the 2001 Florida Citrus Bowl. But this whole team struggled offensively a year ago. Handoff, bouncing off the tackle. Houston staying on his feet. We got a flag down in the backfield. But Cedric Houston up past the first down sticks. Brian Morris there on the stop.
And Jared, Tennessee's doing everything they can to keep Fresno in this ball game. Another penalty. Philip Fulmer can't believe it. He's an old offensive lineman, so how frustrated does he get when his offensive line commit penalties like that?
During the run, holding on the 10-yard spot, replay second down.
I mean, that's just so frustrating. The punt return took you out to midfield. You had a hole. Then you start to move the ball on the ground. Offensive line holds.
Well, the first two possessions, Tennessee looked like a different football team, but their third possession, Clausen throws it to the defensive back as it picked off, and now they're resembling the team that struggled a little bit last year with mistakes, miscues, penalties that have pushed this drive back inside their own 25. Resets, throws it deep, and receiver is shoved down from behind, and that will indeed draw the flags as Dials was on the coverage of C.J. Payton.
This was a good job by Banks to stay with the route because Dials contacted him. So remember in college football, folks, Pat Hill's a little frustrated right now himself, but in college football, the defensive back can continue to contact the wide receiver until the ball's in the air. Unlike the NFL. You throw a route like this, Clausen needs time. Offensive line gives him, look at him, he's looking left, looking right, comes all the way back to Banks.
First down.
And here's a look at the end. Pretty good coverage, you just can't push the guy early. Dials is there, you can't push him. Just make a play on the football, don't make the contact.
Mike, you were a defensive back in college at Boston College and in the NFL. I mean, you're running step for step with the receiver. All you got to do is just reach up and swat the ball away, right, instead of pushing the guy down.
Yeah, that's a young guy being too excited, Joe. That's what that is.
Quick out this time to Payton, the former high school quarterback, and he will lose about 1.5 yards. There's
Who's uglier, him or the one from Georgia? Ugger or Smokey? What do you think?
I tell you what, old Smokey 8, the blue tick coonhound. He is the winningest Smokey in Tennessee history. They've won couple of SEC titles, a national championship. They're going to keep him around for a while.
Yeah, not bad for a dog.
Not bad at all. I think he has a pretty good lifestyle. I'll trade with you, Smokey.
Here they come, blitz. Casey sees it.
Pressure coming. They will hand it off to Houston, who cuts it to the inside, and nice open field stop at about the 47-yard line by Juan Dials, the right cornerback.
One of the things I like, I'm sorry, Jerry. One of the things I like at Tennessee is that if you're a wideout, you've got a block in the run game. And James Banks, former wide receiver, watch him come down and give him the edge, okay? He's going to come down to the inside, wall off, and look at that. If he doesn't make that block, Houston can't get to the outside, and they demand that from the wide receivers of Tennessee.
I mentioned Dials filling in for Kendall Edwards, their best cornerback, and Edwards, an NFL prospect back in Fresno State with his wife, who expected to be in labor this morning. We'll update you when we get information. And Clausen will toss that one in the stands wisely.
You know, Jerry, and you called that correctly when you said wisely. That's something a quarterback has to learn. There's nothing wrong with the fifth row in the stands. There's not, it can't hurt you. And in the past, Casey might not have done that. Last year, he might have forced it. So that's a good job by Casey Clausen, even though you're forced to run the football.
And the first punt of the day by Dustin Colquitt, one of 3 finalists a year ago for the Ray Guy Award, top punter. All SEC, averaged almost 44 yards, 6th best in Tennessee history. And he has got quite the leg this time, trying to get it to hit short about the 10. Bernard Berrien backtracking. Berrien can fly. He's electrified. Here he goes. Tennessee.
Good tackle.
Cuts it back. Great open field tackle by Mark Jones, who is going to play defensive back, wide receiver, punt return man, and now coverage man on the punt team.
Yeah, and it's a hot day. They got to be careful how much they play this guy. You got, Jerry, you talked earlier, how do you get Berrien a chance to make a play? Well, here's one way. You know he's going to outrun the inside guys, but when he gets out on the edge, Mark Jones runs 4-3 himself, and that's a great tackle.
Mentioned Bernard Berrien, if you just joined our coverage, injured in the opening quarter at Wisconsin a year ago. Sprained the medial collateral ligament in his right knee, missed the entire 2002 season after setting a record for all-purpose yards. Led the nation in 2001, set a WAC all-time record. Now back healthy here in 2003. And that guy right there, Rodney Davis, was a third-string tailback a year ago and set a record for rushing for the Bulldogs. Well, the end of the first quarter, Tennessee up 7-0, taking their opening drive 76 yards on 9 plays. Casey Clausen and company up 7-zip. And back in Knoxville, Tennessee at Neyland Stadium, the first quarter is history. Tennessee up 7-0 over the visitors from the Western Athletic Conference, Fresno State. And Fresno State a total of 14 yards total offense in the first quarter. This offense very high-powered over the years, trying to get untracked, and that won't help them at all. Take a look at our exclusive ESPN game track. We show you highlights of the first quarter, and it all began with a drive on the opening Tennessee possession, culminated by a great sidestep by Clausen, and that toss to James Banks from 9 yards out for the touchdown. But also an ill-timed pass by Casey Clausen.
He threw it up for grabs, reminiscent of last year. Juan Dials takes advantage of it, runs it back, and gets positive field position for the Bulldogs.
That's the only points we had in the first quarter. Tennessee struggled a little bit late in the quarter offensively. Fresno State still trying to get untracked this time upfield and just behind the intended receivers. We check in once again in the studio with Matt Weiner.
All right, Jerry, a little drama down the road in Nashville. Ole Miss and Vanderbilt all tied up at 21, 3:50 to go. And Jonathan Nichols gets it through the uprights from 54 yards, his third of the day, and Ole Miss escapes 24-21.
Wow, 54 yards.
And if you're Vandy, Jerry, I mean, what else, right?
Vanderbilt, those guys, they played awfully well. That Vanderbilt team is a much improved football team. Langwood nearly gets it blocked, and it hits about the 47. It'll be picked up there by Jones, and he is brought down after crossing the 45. Very, very close to getting this one blocked. Special teams have blocked 40 kicks over the years for Fresno State and Pat Hill, and Lingle almost gets this one blocked. And back in Tennessee, I'm Jerry Punch along with Mike Mayock and Dave Ryan. Glad to have you with us on a special Labor Day weekend of college football presented by Rust-Oleum Epoxy Shield. Big difference there in total yards. Volunteers controlling the line of scrimmage there in the first quarter. Casey Clausen was 4 of 6 early on in the offense and 1 of 5 through the air in the final 8 minutes of the first quarter. If he can pick up where he left off early on, and indeed completes the pass up to Banks.
You think he's found somebody he likes? James Banks was his backup quarterback all spring. It's man-to-man coverage, and Banks is good speed, but even better body control. Clausen, 5-step drop. He knows he's got man-to-man coverage. He just throws it out there on the edge, and a good job using that big body by James Banks.
Remember, Banks had never caught a pass. He came in as a quarterback, was a track star, state track athlete in Indiana from Indianapolis, had a 10.600 recorded. And overthrowing, speaking of track stars, that one intended for Jonathan Wade, the sophomore.
And that's where I question a little bit Casey Clausen's arm strength. That's the tough play. From one hash mark to the wide side of the field, about an 18-yard out, and that thing sailed real high and wide.
Bring up third and a couple. The focus in the offseason for Tennessee was to try to be able to be consistent, to find some chemistry. This team got a C in chemistry last year. They just simply didn't want to play together. They had a lot of injuries in their defense up front in the offensive line. This time on a 3rd and 2, big hole up the middle, 25, 20, 15, and touchdown for Jabari Davis, the J train in the ball game, and Tennessee gets 6. First carry of the afternoon for the junior Jabari Davis out of Stone Mountain, Georgia, the hero of the 6 overtime victory here a year ago against Arkansas, which we did on ESPN. I was a part of that overtime game. What a football game. He came in and had a fabulous night, rushing for over 130 yards, and now scampers 44 to add 6 points for the Volunteers.
And he's really their short yardage specialist. That was 3rd and 2. He was in the game because they know that he's going to get them too. 44 is a bonus.
And that's one of the rule changes this year, that you can actually enforce those penalties on the ensuing kickoff as opposed to the try. Woolhoit will try to add the extra point and put the Volunteers up by 14. Kick is up and good. And Tennessee starts the second quarter the way they began the first quarter, putting points on the board. The J train, Jabari Davis from 44 yards away. No, you're not going to catch me. Tennessee gets 6. Well, Smokey seems to like what he sees so far from the Volunteers. That Philip Fulmer not real happy with some of these penalties. The 15-yard penalty being enforced, and they will kick it off. Philip Newman will kick it off from his own 20-yard line. One of the new rules invoked this year, you can execute that penalty, elect to take that penalty on the ensuing kickoff. Bernard Berrien and Adam Jennings are deep for Fresno State. Low line drive kick. He picked up by one of the linebackers about the 40-yard line.
And that touchdown, it's 3rd and 2. Watch the right guard right there. Chavis Smith makes the key block at the point of attack. They take care of business with the down block inside. He's untouched through the hole. The wide receiver, Wade, makes a block on the corner. And Doc, you can run it in from there, man.
I'm not so sure. Well, it was a pretty good size hole. And give a call to Jimmy Ray Stevens, the offensive line coach for Tennessee, who spent 9 years on the Florida staff with Steve Spurrier. Philip Fulmer got Jimmy Ray up here. Boy, this offensive line has really come together. 14-zip. Tennessee, and this one, the end around the Berrien has some running room, and will be chased out of bounds after a sizable gain down inside the 46. We are in Knoxville, Tennessee. 104,000 plus at historic Neyland Stadium in Fresno State out of the Western Athletic Conference, taking on the 16th ranked Volunteers of Tennessee. I'm Jerry Punch along with Mike Mayock and Dave Ryan. Glad to have you with us on what is a very warm afternoon here in Eastern Tennessee.
And Doc, we're in the second quarter, and I don't think Fresno State has a first down yet, and it's 2nd and 1.
Exactly right. Fresno State has a total of 20 yards in offense, and they are very close to getting that first down. And Rodney Davis stopped by Kevin Simon, one of those trio of linebackers that, there's look at Kevin, that were injured a year ago. Simon missed the final 9 games of the year with a broken ankle. Roared back here in 2003. We mentioned Kevin Burnett, his playing mate, also had injuries. Richmond, you see in the picture there, a knee injury prior to the season beginning a year ago.
Okay, Jerry, we're down 14-0 here if you're a Fresno fan. It's 3rd and 1. You don't have a first down yet. I wouldn't doubt seeing a guy like Pat Hill fake it and go up top.
2 tight ends. They fake it exactly what you called, Mike. Looking downfield. Has a receiver open at the 20-yard line, and he brings it down. Wow. What a gutsy call by Pat Hill, and a nice touch pass by the quarterback.
Even better catch by Steven Spock, the H-back. Excellent job. And Jerry, you know, Pat Hill's a gambler. 3rd and 1. There's the play action. He's looking in the flat. It's not there. Grady looks down the field, takes a shot, lays it up there nicely. Watch Spock athletically go up and take the football away from the smaller defensive back. Excellent job by H-back Steven Spock.
Spock came in as a walk-on, redshirted in 2000, earned a scholarship, and I think he earned a lot of respect from one quarterback, Jeff Grady, by making that catch there. Deepest penetration, and flags are flying.
No play.
They will wave that play off. Might have had some movement.
Everything's a struggle for Fresno right now.
But you know what, Mike? I'll finish my thought. We'll let Tom Ritter tell us.
Snap. Penalties.
Got some motion. It'll cost Pat Hill's bunch 5 yards.
Look over here, the right tackle. Get a little twitch going. There it is. Right foot. Leaned. Didn't reset. 5 yards.
What I started to say was this is not unusual for Fresno State. They have started on the road 4 consecutive years, playing in some of the big houses around the country. Ohio State at the Horseshoe. They will be going to Oklahoma in a few weeks. They have been behind. They have roared back. And in 2001, they won 3 in a row on the road. And that pass intended for Davis could have been picked off of Davis's fingers. That'll bring up a 2nd and 15.
Yeah, and Grady's got to do a better job for Pat Hill there in converting some of these opportunities. Spock made a great catch. Grady's 4 for 8. There are at least 2 or 3 other passes he should have completed. And Jerry, you make the big play, you got to convert it into points. And that's the thing I like about Pat Hill and his guys. They will never stop playing hard, but you got to convert it to points right now.
Single setback is Davis. 4 wide receivers. Deepest penetration by Fresno State. And Jeff Grady just throws it in the ground.
Oh, come on, that's hard. You know what? Kevin Burnett did a wonderful job sniffing out the screen, but a quarterback, he threw it in the vicinity.
Intentional grounding. Launch it down.
Pat Hill can't believe it, and neither can I. Kevin Simon, the outside linebacker, does a wonderful job anticipating screen. Quarterback knew the play was over. He just threw the ball in the ground in the general area, and I just can't believe it. Now watch up here. He smells screen. He goes right onto the running back, and he just buries it at his feet. How is that intentional ground? I've seen a lot worse than that get away with it.
As they keep shoving Fresno State back, and now Pat Hill wants to discuss it a little bit. Wants to talk with the referee. And he will take time out and talk it over with his quarterback and maybe one of these striped shirts as well. Back with more in just a moment. in Knoxville, Tennessee. 3rd and 26 on consecutive penalties. Fresno State had penetrated inside the 20-yard line for the first time today, down by 14 here in the second quarter. Grady gets nailed from behind, and that's Constantine Ritzman, who missed the entire 2002 season with a knee injury in the final scrimmage last August 20th. Young man from Berlin, Germany. He is a pass rushing specialist.
They had a big year 2 years ago. They're in their dime package. Top of the screen right here. Just blows right around the defensive tackle. But credit the coverage in the secondary. Try to make a pick play right there. He didn't even have the time to look at Marquez Davis.
Ritzman coming off the corner. Young man, as you mentioned, who had a great year 2 years. There is John Chavis, one of the best when it comes to what he has done with this defense. He lost the front four a year ago and 2 linebackers, and had a defense that ranked 5th in the nation at the end of the year in total defense. He lost the front four again this year, and they're playing like that.
And I think he's, for as big a time program as this is, I'm amazed he doesn't get more publicity. The guy really does a great job.
Does a phenomenal job. Brett Vincentainer, redshirt junior, will try from 53 yards. They'll Cooch punt it. It'll bound out of bounds at about the 20-yard line. Didn't gain a whole lot. They were hoping to roll it down inside the 10.
I love the idea, but the execution left a lot to be desired. It's a direct snap, and now all he's got to do is pooch it down, and if you can get it inside the 20-yard line, it can roll right down towards the goal line, and it went off the side of his foot, took a right turn, and I'm sure Vincentainer wasn't real happy with it.
And neither was that guy there, Pat Hill, who loves the fact that his special teams have played so well over the years.
Oh.
Now that's the big difference right there. Rush yards, 139 to 1. Fresno State unable to get on track, even with that record-setting tailback, Rodney Davis. And they will toss it back to Cedric Houston, who will cut it upfield and has one man to beat. And saving the touchdown again is Richard Marshall. We check back in the studio with Matt Weiner.
Oklahoma State ended a long losing streak to Nebraska last year, trying to end an 18-game road losing streak in Lincoln. Josh Fields to Rashawn Woods, pokes up 7-3.
And that's where people were talking about how tough a year it could be for the Cornhuskers. 121 yards for Cedric Houston thus far on 11 carries, averaging 11 yards every time he touches the football.
And now they're going to be forced to gamble. They're bringing everybody.
And dancing away from a tackle, couldn't get away from the second tackler. That's Corey Larkins, who was a running back briefly as a freshman. Touched the ball twice in a game against Syracuse in the second half, scored both times, and they promptly moved him to defensive back after that game. But they moved him back this year because they thought they needed some extra depth at the tailback position.
You haven't even talked about Gerald Riggs, of course. Jerry, who's going to miss the first half, and we'll see him in the second half.
Academically, they are holding Riggs out. Had an agreement with Philip Fulmer to fulfill certain academic requirements. He came very, very close on almost everything, but didn't get it all done. And Philip said that's all about discipline and rules. You will miss the first half of this football game, and Gerald will be back in the second half. As the Tennessee Volunteers will take a timeout and talk it over. When we come back, one of the all-time greatest to wear the Fresno State Bulldog uniform. A #1 draft pick joins us when we come back to Knoxville, Tennessee. Joining us, I know you're watching this game in the first half and got to be a little bit frustrated about the lack of offense for your Bulldogs.
Yeah, we just got to get it going a little bit. First, it all starts on the ground. If we can get a running game going, then they won't be able to just pin their ears back and come after Jeff. But hopefully we can figure out in the second half.
What's the most difficult part? We know this offense that Pat Hill runs is fairly complex. What's the most difficult part for a quarterback to understand and execute as you watch Casey Clausen slide down about the 45? What's the toughest part of running this offense?
I think just knowing where to go with the football. I mean, the route concepts and everything are it's basically a pro-style offense. And if you can get down where to go with the ball and get the ball out of your hands and help your offensive lineman out, and not get sacked and not get minus yardage plays, then you'll be okay. But for the most part, it looks like Jeff's doing okay. He just got to like I said, he's got to get a little bit of a running game going to help him out.
We talked to Pat Hill yesterday. He said you entered Fresno State not that heavily recruited out of high school. When you leave as a #1 draft choice in the NFL, how did that transformation take? Who was involved in that transformation?
God, my family. It was a lot of hard work. It was just, I was there for 5 years. There were a couple of rough years where I wasn't playing, and I was having to watch guys play, and I was just trying to work out and get better and better myself off the field. And and just like you said, learn Coach Hill's offense and what he tries to get done with the ball. But again, it was just a lot of hard work, and me just didn't want to give up, and I knew I always wanted to be an NFL quarterback, and I wanted to get a chance to play on Sundays, and it all worked out.
Hey, David, this is Mike Mayock. Take us back to that 01 season.
Yeah.
What's your biggest memory of that season?
Oh, man, there's so many. It was just, I think the one that sticks out is just being around the guys that I played with for 5 years. I actually got the chance to play against one of them the other day in a preseason game, Vernon Fox, who was our strong safety, and we just sat on the field after the game and talked about that for a while and how much fun it was just to be able to go through that. Because we all came in, we were Coach Hill's first class that he got to recruit, and it was amazing to see the changes from the first year we were there until the last year we were there, and it was just it was a blast.
And if I remember correctly, you took care of business in your non-conference schedule. I think you beat Colorado, Oregon State, maybe Wisconsin, but then we got tripped up in conference.
Oh, I know. Boise State got us and Hawaii got us, and those were 2 games we shouldn't have lost. And like you guys said, we were 2 games away from maybe playing in the Fiesta Bowl, and I was actually talking to Andre Johnson about that on the plane the other day on the way back from the game, and it would have been nice to get a chance to play those guys.
As we see, David, Fresno State back on offense and Rodney Davis dancing through a couple of tackles, the guy that they really missed last year that you had 2 years ago was Bernard Berry, and what an athlete.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Bernard is just, he can do things with his body that, most guys can't do that are twice as small as him. I mean, he's so tall and lanky and got such a big stride, but his agility, I mean, not a lot of people give him that much respect for what he can do with the ball after the catch. Everyone thinks he's just a long strider and he can run by people, but when I had him down there, and now Jeff is fortunate and Paul is fortunate enough to have him, hopefully he can do well and bounce back from that injury, because he's a great football player.
David, we know you got to run, but before we let you go, we got to ask you about the Houston Texans. We know that Dom Capers and company have done a lot in a year there, and the watchword apparently is optimism. With what could happen for you guys this year?
I don't know. I mean, we got some key acquisitions in the offseason. We got Stacey Max, who's been doing good for us in the preseason. We got, again, like I said, Andre Johnson, who's going to help us out, making some plays for us. We got some offensive linemen that are going to help out. If we just continue to improve, things should look good. It reminds me of the first couple of years when I was in Fresno. We were learning. We were trying to go through a process of, getting the city behind you and everything. And I think we got a great atmosphere and a great community to do it in. Hopefully we can get it going.
I think Dom Capers and company will indeed get the job done. David, thanks for your time and joining us. And for so many great memories you gave us in 2001 running this Fresno State offense.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
David Carr, the #1 pick in the 2002 NFL Draft for the Houston Texans, joining us by phone. And in a little while, we're going to hear from the guy who basically lit it up here for many years at Rocky Top, Peyton Manning, joining us from after practice at the Indianapolis Colts facility. And Peyton has spent quite a bit of the summer here and lives around here quite a bit during the summertime, plays some golf, and regularly beats up on Philip Fulmer. He'll be joining us by phone here sometime early in the second half.
Jared, Fresno's got it going a little bit now. A little play action to the tight end. Greco got him a first down. They need some points on the board.
Nice clean pass that time by Grady. It's up near the first down mark. Let's check in back in the studio with Matt.
Jerry, South Florida has no intention of making their visit to Alabama, the Mike Shula homecoming party. Shula's first game as the Tide's head coach, but Jim Leavitt doing a little coaching himself. Brian Fisher, a wideout, lines up under center and takes it in. He has a touchdown catch as well. Bulls up 14-7.
The Shula family's from Florida. You would think South Florida would have a little respect for Mike Shula.
Yeah. 3 offenses in 3 months is too much for any college kid to absorb.
Take nothing away from South Florida. They're a very well-coached football team. Grady dancing around, trying to avoid the sack, and finally is corralled at about the 44-yard line. That's Jabril Wilson, the strong safety.
That was a 3rd and 3 situation, and once again, Tennessee did a nice job in the defensive backfield. Grady pulled the ball back down.
And that'll bring up a punting situation. And there is Paul Penninger, the freshman of the year a year ago in the Western Athletic Conference. Set a freshman record for passing with over 2,900 yards, just under 3,000 yards. Fresno State back to punt. Rashad Baker deep to receive. A high floater, and Baker will call for the fair catch and take it on his own 15-yard line. While college football coming away tonight on ABC kicks off with outstanding regional action at 8 Eastern time. Catch a defending national champion Ohio State Buckeyes against the Washington Huskies, or the Florida State Seminoles traveling to Chapel Hill to take on the Tar Heels of North Carolina. Check local listings for the game in your area. Of course, the Buckeyes are defending national champion. Your thoughts on that one, Michael? Washington coming into the horseshoe?
Yeah, I think even without Florette, it's Ohio State all the way. I think they're just too good, and I think that other game is interesting, too. People don't realize when you lose two coordinators like Chuck Amato, number one, Mark Richt at Georgia, you know, it really is tough to keep the continuity going, and Florida State's found that out. Bobby Bowden hired Kevin Steele, the former Baylor head coach, as a linebacker coach, and has done a great job late in the recruiting scheme. And I'm told that Bobby has really gotten focused and gotten back involved with what's happening there in the Seminole territory. We'll see tonight on that one in Chapel Hill. Pretty good stuff there by the front for Fresno State. Jabari Davis not getting much. We are inside of 4 minutes here in the first half on a very warm afternoon here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Lawson sees the coverage down here. He knows it's man-to-man.
Another give to Davis, and he will be stood up after the gain of about a yard by Bryce McGill, the all-WAC linebacker from a year ago.
You know, Fresno's being forced now with this run game by Tennessee being so good. They're bringing 7, 8, 9 in the box right now. D. Meza, their safety's flying up there, and I know Tennessee sees what's happening, and they're going to play action and go up top pretty soon.
3rd and 4 for the Volunteers. Play looks over the middle and throws into double coverage, but the catch is made, and it'll be right at the first down mark. Probably mark it, well, depends on the mark as to whether they'll have the first down. They're going to mark it just beyond the 25-yard line, so it will be a first down for Tennessee. We just joined our coverage. The Volunteers in the opening possession of the game drove it 9 plays for 76 yards. The final scoring a 9-yard pass from quarterback to quarterback from Clausen to Banks. And in the opening drive of the second quarter, a 44-yard run by Jabari Davis. That's the scoring thus far here in Knoxville, 14-0 Tennessee. Toss back to Davis, and he will be up near the 30-yard line. Let's check back in the studio again with Matt Weiner.
All right, Jared, coming up at halftime, Mike Shula getting bull rushed and passed and everything else by South Florida in his debut at Alabama. The reigning SEC champs, Georgia, open up on the road at Clemson. We've got pictures, and we'll take you around the Big Ten, including stops at Michigan on their next turf. Did well for Chris Berry. That's coming up in the Pontiac High Performance Halftime Report.
That's your always high performance. The Pontiac High Performance Halftime Report coming up in under 2 minutes. We'll head back to the studio very shortly. Banks again makes the quick kick. Look at the feet on Banks.
That's an excellent individual effort by Banks. Corner blitz read correctly by Casey Clausen. They're doing a real nice job of recognition. The corner's going to come. Clausen knows the safety's coming over top to make the play and misses the tackle. And watch the individual effort by Banks to get the first down.
Banks played 8 games a year ago, started against Georgia when Clausen had that broken collarbone. And that pass broken up by D. Meza, the free safety. I tell you, folks, you let this Fresno State team hang around, and with their offense and the fact that they're gaining a little bit of confidence and move the ball in their last possession. That's when we talked with David Carr. This guy here, Pat Hill, will take him in the locker room, and he's a winner. You talk to him, and you want to go take a bite out of the goalpost.
Absolutely. And they've been in a lot of hostile environments. They will not give up. Tennessee has got to kick them when they're down.
2nd and 10 for the Volunteers. Final minute 34 of the first half here in Knoxville. Pass complete outside the fake, the sophomore out of Virginia Beach.
D. Meza, the safety, came late on the safety blitz, and they pick it up again. Here comes the safety, number 10, flying in. Good job of recognition, and they convert the first down.
Third and 5 for Tennessee on this drive as they are methodically churning the clock down toward halftime. Two receivers top of your screen. He dumps it to the inside of the bottom of your screen, and that's Troy Fleming, the fullback, who he shoved out of bounds and shoved again as some of this partisan Tennessee crowd didn't like that second push. Fleming has a little discussion with the field judge about it. We mentioned that Fresno State had opened up on the road 4 consecutive years, Pat Hill and company. They opened up at Ohio State in 2000, at Colorado in 2001, at Wisconsin in 2002. And this year they come all the way across the country, 3,000 miles to Knoxville, Tennessee, or thereabouts, to Knoxville, Tennessee, to open up against the Volunteers. Dustin Colquitt back to punt to Bernard Berrien. Doesn't. The Ray Guy finalist, a low line drive, but it turns over, hits it about the 16, will roll down the Berrien at the 11, he'll take it, he is dangerous, he needs a block to turn the corner, he got the block, and now he's got running room, 25, 30, this guy can fly, here comes a flag in, down at about the 25, that was way behind Berrien, and the Tennessee kicker is also down with his helmet off. That is Dustin Colquitt, the punter. As he was trying to move over to make the tackle and seal off the return, he gets hit.
I thought a couple of the early blocks were questionable that weren't called. I thought the late one out there by the kicker was okay. Tennessee still has a couple guys down on the field now.
Got a block below the knees against the returning team. We'll take a look at Pat Hill, as they got 2 players down now for Tennessee.
Now Berrien's trying to make something happen. Here's the injury to the punter, Colquitt, who obviously, when he's backing up, wants no parts of it. He's trying to stay out of the play. Look at the shot coming from the other way. Here comes the return now. Berrien trying to make a little something out of nothing. There's a questionable play back there, but up here,
There were 2 fouls.
Block below the waist is what it was.
During the return, that penalty. You had a clipping on the first team. That penalty is declined. First down.
And that was Jabril Wilson, by the way, the other player that was down for Tennessee.
We got a little people in the stands are a little excited right now. Here's the return. He's trying to make it happen. Good move here. Now he's going to give ground. Right here, I thought there might have been a hit in the back. And then there's the low block in the right corner. And unfortunately for Fresno, it had nothing to do with the play. Dumb block by Fresno.
And Wilson was down. He's up and trotted off. And now the final minute of the first half. And that has gotten these Tennessee fans fired up, because believe me, if anyone could love a punter, they love what Colquitt did last year. He was one of the few weapons that worked efficiently all year long for him.
Yeah, and that was a nasty shot on Colquitt.
We'll try to get an update at halftime as Dave Ryan will be able to hopefully grab Philip Fulmer going off and update us on what the situation is with their All-American punter and Ray Guy candidate. And we will take a break here. Final minute of the first half here. 14-0 Tennessee Volunteers. Final 45 seconds of the first half. Fresno State deep in their own territory. And Tennessee using some timeouts here to try to force Fresno State to have to kick the ball away from their own end zone.
Absolutely. Remember, Joe, the last punt, they almost got a piece of it. Remember? So they want to force them to punt, come after the punter, either block the kick or get a chance to run a couple of plays and get a long field goal.
Now, Cedric Houston, there's a look at Cedric, the junior from Clarendon, Arkansas. What a first half he has had. He was frustrated a year ago, had thigh and thumb injuries, only healthy for about 8 games, but he has roared back here in the first half to be able to just make some significant moves in the run game.
Yeah, and the offensive line, you got to take your hats off to them. They're the guys that are allowing Houston and Davis to get into the secondary untouched. When you let a guy with some talent do that, as you can see right here, good cut right there. That offensive line, Jerry, just opened it wide up for the tailbacks.
11 carries for 120 yards for that man right there. And look at the rushing for Fresno State, minus 6 yards in the first half. And Pat Hill and company, Frank Cignetti Jr. Cignetti, name's familiar. His dad, the former head coach at West Virginia. His brother, Kurt Cignetti, the quarterback coach at NC State. A coaching family. 3rd and 6 from the 10-yard line. And it'll be shy of the first down, and exactly what Tennessee wanted to do was try to have Fresno State punt from their own end zone.
And there's 2 schools of thought here. One is to go after the punter and try and block it. The other is to set up your return game. They almost got to the punter last time.
You know, Steve Caldwell's a special teams coach here, but Shane Beamer is a graduate assistant who works with special teams, and the name sounds familiar. His dad, the head coach, Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech. So Shane working in practice this week with some of the special teams. And remember, Virginia Tech's pretty good at blocking punts. So, and they let the clock expire. They will let it run out at halftime. As Philip Fulmer and Pat Hill will head to the locker room. Pretty good start by the Volunteers in the first half. They scored on the opening possession of the first quarter and also the opening possession of the second quarter. The only points here in the first half for Tennessee. Let's check in down where Dave is caught up with the head coach of Tennessee.
All right, thanks, Coach. The don't tell me, show me theme, big for your team in the preseason. Were you pleased with how well the offensive line seemed to blow Fresno State off the ball?
So far, we're doing really well that way. We've got to have a little bit of an answer to their blitz. They're making us throw it before we want to, but we really should have a couple more scores by now, I think. But the offensive line has set the tempo in the first half. Our defense has really done well.
Are you pleased with how Casey Clausen is leading this team after what happened in the last game of your last season, the bowl game?
Well, you know, that's a long time ago, and Casey's been a great leader, and he's won a bunch of ball games here in the past. And, you know, he had a bad ball game there that won, and I'm really pleased with what Casey's done this game and since he's been here, actually.
Do we know about Colquitt and Wilson right now with the injuries?
I think they'll be fine.
Okay.
All right, Dave, thank you very much. Good news that Colquitt will be okay. Volunteers up 14-0. Let's check in with our Pontiac High Performance halftime report in the studio. Here is Matt Weiner. Matt? And we are back in Knoxville, Tennessee at Neyland Stadium, where at halftime the Tennessee Volunteers are up 14-0 over the Bulldogs of Fresno State. Take a look at our exclusive ESPN2 game track of the first half highlights, and it all began with Tennessee's opening possession.
Yeah, and it all began on the ground. They rushed the ball 17 times for about 170 yards. Whether it was Houston or Jabari Davis, it didn't matter. And then defensively, their front seven, which was a big question, especially up front, dominated. Active linebackers getting to the quarterback, Constantine Richmond. It's been all Tennessee.
Minus 2 yards rushing, and we know Pat Hill could not have liked it. They wanted to run the football, and I've got to believe he was very, very fiery. He's an energetic individual at halftime. We'll hear from him in just a moment if we can get Dave Ryan to catch up with him. But halftime frustrating for the offense for Fresno State.
Yeah, I truly believe Fresno's lucky to be in this football game. It's only 14-0. They've got a chance to beat these guys if they can move the ball a little bit, and more importantly, stop Tennessee.
Our Rust-Oleum Epoxy Shield halftime stats. There's a look at the numbers. 170 yards of rushing, minus 2 for Fresno State. Total offense, wow. You count it all up, 269 for Tennessee, only 63, most of it through the air for the Bulldogs of Fresno State.
And when you add it all up, Jerry, once again, Philip Fulmer ought to have more than a 14-point lead.
And you could tell from when he talked to Dave Ryan going off at halftime that he had a lot on his mind, because they had some glimmers that the offense was going to reignite, and they also had some frustration reminders from a year ago where they had some mistakes. And remember, they had a motion penalty which cost them to have to retry a field goal, and it was missed the second time out by Wilhoit. So we'll see if Tennessee can try to cut down on their mistakes in the second half as well.
Yeah, I'd like to see a little more intensity out of Fresno State. I think they're going to be fired up.
Marcus Fusco, the young man who just joined Tennessee, who will kick it off. The transfer from Arizona, the junior college, youngster out of Memphis, Tennessee. Bernard Berrien back at the goal line. Will take it to begin the second half. Berrien cuts it upfield, has a block, trying to follow his blockers. Does a great job of pushing by the blocker and gets up near the 35-yard line. Let's check in where Dave Ryan caught up just a moment ago with Pat Hill. Dave?
Coach Pat Hill, you prepared your team very well in terms of the blaring crowd noise in your home field back in Fresno. Is this team ready for the atmosphere here? Has it been a factor in the first half?
No, that hadn't been a factor. The factor's been on offense. We're not playing very well. We're not protecting the quarterback. We're not making throws. Our defense is playing well enough, but we're not tackling well. We've given up a couple good plays. We got to come out in the second half, play football. You know, we got a chance to win this football game if we just play.
170 rushing yards for Tennessee. What adjustments do you make up front? Because their offensive line has been effective in the first half.
God dang, they're running the ball really well. I know that. The whole thing is we're not getting many first downs. We got to get our defense off the field. We got to start hooking up on some passes. We got to control the clock a little bit. We just got to start playing with more intensity. I think right now, I think it's finally worn off that we're here at Tennessee. Now it's time to see if we can play some football and beat these guys.
Pat Hill, Fresno State, trying to win the first ever matchup with Tennessee, guys.
Well, Dave, thank you very much. The energy and enthusiasm of Pat Hill is infectious. I got to believe if he was with George Custer at Little Bighorn, that Custer might have won, or at least sent it into overtime. That guy can coach. I guarantee he fired up these players at halftime. Just a moment ago, that completion to Alec Greco, the tight end, gets a couple. Opening possession for the Bulldogs in the second half. Brady looking upfield and will run out of bounds and lose about 2 yards back to the original line of scrimmage.
Yeah, good coverage in the secondary. They were trying to get a tight end Spock down on a flag pattern, and Grady had nowhere again to go with the football.
Andre Dickerson, the senior, big defensive tackle out of Memphis, Tennessee. They talked about him. They said this guy's got all the abilities. If they can just get Andre to get a little meaner, a little more fired up. He's big, he's strong, he's physical, and he's a teddy bear. They're trying to get him to play a little more aggressively, and that was a pretty aggressive play there, chasing Brady out of bounds.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that looks like Tarzan, and that's who they want him to play like, not James.
3rd and 10, opening possession. See if Pat Hill can get some offense going here. He wants to be able to move the ball, keep his defense off the field, and pass intended upfield for Berrien, and he was double covered.
Brady's got a look of confusion about him. Pat Hill very frustrated. Jabari Greer, good coverage down the field.
And if you're wondering about Paul Pinniger, if he just tuned in, the freshman of the year in the WAC a year ago, who was the quarterback for Fresno State, he hurt a pectoral muscle, tore a pectoral muscle 10 days ago. He really isn't available today. And of course, the 5th-year senior Grady gets the start. Mark Jones at his own 25. Slips to a tackle, and flags come flying from the near side. Had a little pushing and shoving down here about the 30-yard line. We'll check in and see if Thomas Ritter, our SEC referee, can let us know if they're going to walk off some yardage. Got a holding on the return team. Let's check in on the sidelines with Dave Ryan.
Doc, you mentioned Paul Pinniger, the quarterback, out for Fresno State. The coaches aren't sure when or where it happened, but he is out for a while. Listed week to week with that torn right pectoral muscle. He first felt the pain below his right shoulder back on August 14th for 8 days. After that,
Holding on the receiving team. 10 yards for the spot foul. First down.
he was limited, guys, to handoff drills, footwork, and short passing. Only Monday tried to throw some deep balls and felt more pain. An MRI revealed a slight tear. He's here and dressed for the game, but really unavailable unless it's a complete emergency for Fresno State.
Yeah, they told us that basically Frank Zagnetti Jr. said that he would only come in the football game and maybe hand the ball off in a dire emergency. They've got a backup who was actually a walk-on, a redshirt freshman walk-on, that they would use possibly if they need be as well. Opening possession, second half for Tennessee. And Cedric Houston will get a couple. There's a look at Pinniger. What a year he had last year, Mike Mayock, for this team. He stepped in as a redshirt freshman and just did a phenomenal job. 2,900 yards. Carried him after the senior goes down a year ago, and was WAC freshman of the year and had the best numbers of any freshman quarterback in the nation last year.
Yeah, and I watched a lot of tape of him. He had 20 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. Does a good job making decisions on top of it all.
Another handoff inside. Now we talked to David Carr earlier in the first half, the 2002 #1 draft choice. Take a look at the comparison with Carr and Pinniger through their first 12 starts. Actually, Pinniger had a better record in the first 12 starts. Look at the completions, the yards, and Pinniger did pretty well.
Yeah, it's almost eerie how similar these numbers are. 2,800 total yards, 27-29 for Carr. But before we start anointing this young man as the next David Carr, I think that's an awful lot of pressure. He's only a sophomore. He will be back hopefully in a couple of weeks.
3rd and 3 for the Volunteers in their opening second half possession. Clausen looking to throw it for the first time. And receiver trying to get off. That is Banks.
And that's been an interesting matchup all day. Dials on Banks. Banks won it in the first half, but that was real good coverage. Man-to-man press coverage by Dials with no help, and he did a good job.
Well, Dustin Colquitt is back, and he's going to kick it away, and that's certainly good news for the Tennessee faithful. And then better news for the folks watching at home. We're going to have a Tennessee legend join us when we come back in just a moment. The man is the all-time record holder throwing the football here, one Peyton Manning. Will join us from Indianapolis here momentarily, and we see Bernard Berrien fielding that punt and being tackled at about the 35. We'll come back to Knoxville, Tennessee at Neyland Stadium, and Peyton Manning will join us here to talk about what's happening with the Volunteers. Well, the SEC's all-time leading passer in yardage, 11,201 yards. How about some great memories here at Rocky Top for this guy, Peyton Manning, joining us here momentarily on the phone from Indianapolis. As you see, the Volunteer defense playing awfully well, stuffing that run early. Peyton, hey, thanks a lot for taking time out to join us here on the telecast.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me.
Hey, before we talk about Tennessee, I got to ask you about little brother. I know you called, as typical as happens with the Manning family. You guys are very close. I know you called to find out what happened up in Nashville. They had a close call with Ole Miss and Vanderbilt.
I tell you, it was a tight game. I got to see the first half, then I came over here for practice, and I had to just call for updates, and kind of like they pulled out a close one. I tell you, Vanderbilt has a much improved football team from last year, and they gave Ole Miss a great, great game. That was a big win for the Rebels.
It certainly was, and they talk about much improved. I know you spent some time. Fumble from Fresno State, and Kevin Burnett almost had it. Looks like Fresno State may have gotten it back. Indeed, they did. Peyton, we're talking with Peyton Manning now, joining us on the phone from Indianapolis. Peyton, I know you spent some time here this summer with Philip Fulmer, and the focus was trying to get back the toughness and tenacity with this Tennessee offense. That was what he talked about, I think, to anybody who was a close friend of his all summer long.
Well, that was really the goal all offseason, because last season, especially late, their leadership kind of wavered a little bit, and it really showed up in the bowl game. So guys like Rashad Baker and Jabril Wilson and Munoz, those guys are really going to have to lead this team this year and get Tennessee back to playing the kind of football they're capable of. And I think you're seeing it today. You're seeing a great running game. You're seeing a dominant offensive line. You see their defense taking over. That's what's going to have to carry them this year.
I know it's tough when you come through here and you play and you're a part of this program and you put up the kind of numbers you put up, but every quarterback from now on who plays here at Tennessee is going to be compared to Peyton Manning, and that, how fair is that? I mean, Casey Clausen didn't exactly have the kind of receivers and some of the support people you had when he was trying to get it done a year ago.
No, I don't think it's really fair. I think everybody needs to come there and just be their own quarterback and just play the best of their ability. I play with a lot of great players, Peerless Price, Jamal Lewis, Travis Henry, guys that are dominating in the NFL right now. So I think for Casey this year, I think he's still trying to find some of those go-to guys. I worked out with him this offseason, the team, and I really like James Banks, and you saw him catch that touchdown. He's a guy I think that can be a difference maker. They can kind of bail Casey out. But, he lost Washington. He's lost Stallworth. So he's looking for that guy to step up and be that big play receiver, kind of like Peerless Price and Joey Kent were for me. So that's really what I think Tennessee needs offensively, is one of those receivers to step up and be the go-to guy.
And Peyton, you make a really good point, because throughout the entire first half, the guy they went to was the backup quarterback, Banks, and he made a couple of huge plays in the first half. Have you had much of an opportunity to see him in person?
I have seen him. He's from right here in Indianapolis, and so he was a quarterback here at high school at Ben Davis. So I watched him play some in high school, and when I came back to work out with the team in the offseason, he was working at quarterback. And I said, hey, James, I'm proud of your effort, but get your butt out there at receiver and start catching some passes, because he's such a great athlete. And what I like about him is that he knows the offense as a quarterback, so he knows where Casey expects him to be. And when you have that kind of timing with the quarterback and receiver, that can make for a special combination.
Yeah, and Banks just caught a pass for about 4 yards there. The fumble was late and didn't matter. You know what I like about him, Peyton, in the first half, a lot of man-to-man press coverage, and he did something the receivers last year couldn't. He got off it and made plays.
I think that's what it's about, because especially in the SEC, you're going to see physical cornerbacks. You're going to see a pass rush. So the receivers have to have a sense of timing, of getting open against their coverage guy and getting open on time before the pass rush gets to the quarterback. So I think Banks can be that guy this year.
Hayden, we showed the folks coming on a moment ago the yardage and some of the great passes over the years and the attempts, but I think the 100,000+ people here at Neyland Stadium will always remember one thing, a lot of things about Peyton Manning, but on your final game here, you had a special moment where you got to go over and actually lead the band in Rocky Top.
I tell you, it was kind of a humbling thing, to tell you the truth, Doc, because the band director asked me if I wanted to do it, and I got up there, and it was kind of a spur-of-the-moment decision, and I was kind of doing my conducting. And boy, I thought they sounded really good, and all of a sudden I looked down, and the real conductor was right below me actually doing it. So it kind of brought me down to earth real quick. But that's what's special about Tennessee and Knoxville. Like you said, 107,000 every single Saturday, no matter who you're playing, running out through the tee, the band. It's a special place to play quarterback, and I felt very privileged to be able to do it for 4 years, and it'll always be a special place for it in my heart.
You know, I've learned, I just moved to Knoxville a couple of weeks ago, and I've learned a great way to order a pizza and get it here in a hurry is when you order it, just you tell the pizza delivery guy, say, hey, hang on a second, hey, Peyton, what do you want on it? He thinks you're there, and the pizza's there like in 7 minutes. So that's
absolutely.
It's a little tricky.
That's a good philosophy.
Hey, we saw you this past Monday night on Monday Night Football, and I know you love to play and you're physical and you really want to help the team, but in light of what happened to Mike Vick and Chad Pennington, we saw you leading blockers on a reverse, and you were loving it. I think Tony Dungy probably had to have his heart stopped.
I don't know if we're going to run it again anytime soon. It was just kind of one of those plays that I probably didn't have time to think about, that it was preseason, and Marvin Harrison was carrying the ball, and I'd rather take the hit instead of letting Marvin get hit, because I need him all season to catch some touchdowns for me. But we finished out the preseason last night, came out injury-free. We got our opening game next week against Cleveland. So, just watching Tennessee play today and watching Ole Miss play, I'm just glad college football season and NFL season are kicking off, and I'm just glad football's back.
Well, we are too, and we're glad to have you with us, and I know you got a lot of things on your plate. We're glad to have you join us here. 5 days, 13 games, a special Labor Day weekend here, extravaganza to kick off college football, and you have been a major part of the success of college football on ESPN over the years, and we appreciate you taking time and to come on with us. And by the way, your honesty and openness is refreshing. I heard your conversation this week. You're talking about, hey, you blame yourself for maybe some of the things that should have gotten done in Indianapolis, but you guys are going to roar back this year and have a great year for the Colts. Hang on one second, if you would.
Thank you, Doc. I appreciate that.
Second and short, and Peyton Manning hanging on with us here from Indianapolis. Legendary quarterback, record setter that holds all the records here at Tennessee in passing, and most passing yards in Southeastern Conference all-time history. And we asked Philip Fulmer about Peyton Manning, about the fact that I think what you meant to this program.
Peyton is an incredible person, leader, and even today, you see Peyton Manning study lounge. You see all the contributions that he has made and left his legacy here at Tennessee, like probably none other in the history of Tennessee football.
And Peyton, I know that there is a special place in that man's heart for you and what you did here for this university, and they will never forget the impact you had here, not only as a quarterback on the field, but what you did off the field as a leader in this program.
Well, like I said, Coach Fulmer, I really appreciate him giving me the opportunity. Coming from New Orleans up to Knoxville, I was kind of an outsider coming in, and people there really adopted me, as if I was one of their own. And I really appreciate Coach Fulmer giving me the chance to play. I got to start 4 years, and obviously playing at Tennessee has really prepared me for life in the NFL, both on the field and off the field. But I get back to Knoxville quite a bit. Got so many great friends back there, and it's always fun to come back. And really, it'll always be home for me.
The only thing he said to us, Peyton, I'm being honest now, he said, you know, you just don't respect him. You will not let him win on the golf course.
Well, you know, I mean, I can't keep the ball in bounds for him, you know. You know, I try to do the best I can. I try to give him the 7-8 foot putts, you know, for gimmies, but off the tee, it's a different story.
Oh, they love you here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Peyton Manning, the legendary quarterback for the Volunteers. Hey, Peyton, good luck to you this year with the Indianapolis Colts, and give our best to Coach Dungy and the staff up there. Thank you for taking time to join us.
Hey, guys, thanks a bunch. Enjoyed it.
Thanks, Peyton.
See you.
One of the all-time greats here, and it does work. If you want to order a pizza, you just say, hey, Peyton, what do you want on it? The guys are right there.
I don't think they're coming to Philly for me, though.
Gerald Riggs, we told you he would miss the first half by having to sit out for an academics, and now he is in the ball game at tailback. Yes, he is the son of the NFL running great Gerald Riggs Sr., played with the Falcons and the Washington Redskins. But what a great day to be able to have David Carr on from the first half from Fresno State, the top-round draft choice, and then a moment ago, a great visit from Peyton Manning. There's a look at Gerald out of Red Bank High School in Chattanooga, Tennessee, 220-pound sophomore.
And lost in the whole thing, and Peyton did a great job, but Tennessee's currently on a 10-play drive that's taken up over 5 minutes of the clock, and Fresno State again needs to make a play.
Still at 14-0, no score thus far. Just under 5 minutes to go here in the third quarter. I should say no score in the third quarter. We had 14 points at halftime. There's the fade, and Banks did not get off. Was being held up, I should say, or had a pretty good bump there by the cornerback. Was not able to get to the end zone. You got to get. Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, Pat Hill knows it's third down about 7. It's a big down, and once again, you're down 14-0, and at some point you've got to make a play.
And the fact that Fresno State has held Tennessee out of the end zone here in the third quarter has quietened down this crowd of over 104,000 here in Neyland. Big stop needed here for the Bulldogs of Fresno State. Lawson looks. And will get pressure from behind, throws it toward the end zone, and it can't hold on. Did a great job of getting a pass off, intended for Tony Brown, the junior out of Lauderdale Lakes, Florida.
Real good coverage by the strong safety that time, James Sanders. It's in the slot. Clausen steps up, tries to deliver the football. And you can see just real good coverage, gets that inside arm over. Real good defense.
Claude Sanders on the pressure there. And here's James Wilhoit. Missed a 31-yarder in the first half. This one from 35. And he will miss that one as well. Tough start for the young man who has had a great spring kicking in a 57-yarder and a 58-yarder in high school. And kicking woes continue here at Tennessee, and Philip Fulmer not happy about that. They've given away 6 points, and that one is wide right. And Peyton Manning pass. One of the streets leads down the hill here to Neyland Stadium. There's Philip Fulmer Way. I think there's Johnny Majors Boulevard. All they name their streets after their famous athletes and coaches here in Tennessee. Handoff inside for a gain of about 3 for Fresno State. Let's check in back in the studio with Matt Weiner. Matt?
All right, Jerry, the John L. Smith era of Michigan State football is underway. Western Michigan over and making it very close, but Jerron Hayes takes the handoff, and Jerron Hayes is going to hit the spot. 43 yards on the touchdown run. Nifty running there. It's Jeff Smoker to Ajim Shabai. Second time they've hooked up. 23-14. Spartans up by 9 in the second.
Thanks, Matt. John L. Smith will get it done up there. He had the wide open offense at Louisville over the years. As Fresno State will call a timeout. A little bit of confusion there and to talk it over. And we'll take the time with them. 14-0 Tennessee here with 3:40 to go in the third quarter. And back in Knoxville, Tennessee up 14-0 over Fresno State. ESPN's unprecedented weekend of college football continues tonight on ESPN and ESPN2 at 7:45 Eastern. It's the battle for bragging rights in Colorado as the Buffaloes take on the Rams of Colorado State at 9 o'clock Eastern on ESPN2. It is Oregon and Mississippi State. And unable to hold on on that pass intended for the H-back spot. Let's check in on the sidelines with Dave.
Well, Doc, you might think Fresno State would have some trouble with the adjustment to the heat here in Knoxville, Tennessee. It was about 85 degrees or so at kickoff, very thick humidity. But the trainers from Fresno tell me back home, regularly in their training camp, 115+ degrees, and they really had no trouble with cramps or any kind of dehydration issues. Lots of water before this game today, guys. And also keep in mind their bench now in this half is in shade. They're nice and cool.
The dog days of August, and Old Smoky trying to stay cool, but it is a scorcher here with the heat and humidity in Knoxville. And that one tipped and still almost caught by Marquez Davis.
Another third down, lack of conversion by Jeff Grady. They can't sustain a drive.
Fresno State 1 of 11 now in third down conversions. And as you heard Pat Hill tell our Dave Ryan at halftime, we have got to get some offense going. This game is by far still not out of reach considering the kind of offense that Fresno State has run over the years. If you don't believe that, ask some of the guys they beaten on the roads over the years, like Wisconsin and Oregon State.
Side of the foot. It's going to be about a 10-yard punt.
That wobbly punt off the right side of Mike Lingua's foot. And Pat Hill says, what else can happen to us here? We've come 3,000 miles and we're just struggling on offense, and now we can't punt the ball much beyond the line of scrimmage. A 5-yard punt. Let's take a look again at Lingua.
Perfect snap, no problem with the pressure. That's just one of those situations off the side of his foot. He knows it right away. And in a situation like this, you can't afford to give Tennessee the short field.
Well, Tennessee will take over deep in Fresno State territory. The line of scrimmage being shown as the 28-yard line. Game going here in the second half. That is Riggs, Gerald Riggs Jr., Mark Daly there to make the stop.
Fresno starting to pack more people up at the line of scrimmage trying to stop the run game. Remember, Tennessee had 170 yards at halftime on 17 carries. Pat Hill knows he's got to stop the run first and take his chances out on the edge with those wideouts.
Philip Fulmer has to like some of what he's seeing, but he's got a little bit frustrated about the fact that the offense has been inconsistent. I guess maybe the word you use here in this one. They've had some shining moments. Casey Clausen trying to reignite the fire. Well, here's Gerald Riggs in the second half coming into play. Nice cutback by Riggs. Runs through a couple blockers inside the 5-yard line. And they will mark him down actually at about the 5.5.
And this is just total domination at the point of attack. The linemen, the fullback out front, everything they're doing. Toss sweep, the fullback Fleming gets a good block, and then uphill right there makes the cut. You can see the acceleration by Riggs. Man, they got a lot of good tailbacks, Doc.
They are not at a loss at all for tailbacks and running backs in this program. Cedric Houston, 120 yards in the first half. Jabari Davis, a 44-yard scamper for a score in the second quarter. And now Gerald Riggs in with that one, a 20-yard run to the 5-yard line. Again, it's Riggs, heavy dose of Gerald Riggs, and he has stood up on a great defensive effort by Dell Hawkins at the 5.
Good hit by the defensive tackle Hawkins. Coming right back with the same kind of power football as Tennessee, and Hawkins making the play from the inside out. High formation. They're going to come right over the right side of the line. Smith. And watch the hit right there. Good job by Hawkins.
And Riggs goes off, by the way, to earth it off a little bit. We'll check on Gerald Riggs. Cedric Houston comes back in. Clausen will look to throw the fade up over the receiver, up over the defender, I should say, is Tony Brown. Touchdown, Tennessee.
Jerry, I think it's time to give Casey Clausen some credit. He made the correct pre-read over the ball. He had twins to the wide side of the field. There was no safety help. It was just man-to-man coverage. Number one, he recognized it. Number two, he put the football where only Tony Brown could make the catch.
And how about Tony Brown? I think they've called Tennessee wide receiver U for good reason over the years. Last year they struggled with receivers, and now they have found them some. How about Tony Brown out of Lauderdale Lake, Florida, who broke all of Michael Irvin's records in high school. Brown goes up over the defender and pulls it down for 6. And look at Tony Brown, who just caught that touchdown pass a moment ago. The drive, 4 plays, 28 yards, a minute 53 seconds, following that 5-yard punt by Fresno State that allowed the great field position for Tennessee. Ryan Fusco will kick it out of the end zone. Strong leg with Fusco.
Now on the touchdown play, look at the pre-read. He knows he's got man here and man here, and what's going to happen is Jones will crash, and then Brown will run to the corner. Clausen reads it correctly and just lays it out to the corner of the end zone, and then great individual effort by Tony Brown. 3-step drop, just throw it to the corner of the end zone and let your athlete make a play, and that's exactly what Tony Brown did today, and he beats James Sanders.
And there's a look at the scoring drive again. 4 plays, only 28 yards. The frustrating 5-yard punt. I'm sure that no one's more frustrated than Mike Lingua right now, who's a great young punter, redshirted a year ago, and just went off the side of his foot and gave the Volunteers great field position. Fresno State trying to get on track. Will hand it off to Davis. Some running room on the left side, but the hole closes in a hurry. Great speed on the outside by Jason Mitchell, the weak side linebacker.
And when we talked with, there's Lingua, of course, who 5-yard punt, direct result became a touchdown. We talked to John Chavis yesterday, and he compared this group of linebackers to some of the best they've ever had here, with the caveat that they haven't played enough games to earn that yet. And I got to tell you right now, Jason Mitchell, Kevin Simon, Burnett, and Peace, they can run sideline to sideline.
They are mentioned in the same breath with some of the great ones over the years, and they put a lot of people in the NFL playing on Sunday. Brady running for his life, being chased from behind, and will throw it out of bounds. Clausen getting a little bit of a massage, has had a groin pulled in practice, a little bit of a hip flexor, but that looks like it's more cramping. They got ice on that calf, and the trainers do a great job here at Tennessee.
Yeah, we just got the report from Dave Ryan about the heat down on the sideline. That's a direct result of it right there.
Keith Clements and company, the head trainer at Tennessee. Working on Casey Clausen. Total yards, that pretty well sums it up. 71 for an offensive-minded team of Fresno State. Give some credit to Tennessee's defense and what the job they've done trying to shut down this short passing game. And here again, smothering the quarterback, Jeff Grady.
And Kevin Simon just blew up the fullback and made the play. It's unbelievable what Simon just did. Watch Simon come in right over here. The hit, he just takes the fullback right into the quarterback's throat and delivers the tackle on top of it. That's a tremendously strong and athletic play.
Kevin Simon thought he was going to go to Notre Dame. They couldn't get him in school there. He had 1 visit left. He came to Tennessee at the last minute, loved what he saw when he talked to John Chavis and company, talked to his dad, who basically was his only parent growing up, says, I want to go to Knoxville, Tennessee, and the rest is history. Kevin Simon, a major factor in that stop for the Volunteers. Back with the final 15 minutes here from Neyland Stadium in Knoxville in just a moment. ESPN proudly celebrating our 20th year of coverage in college football. Great Labor Day weekend special, 13 games in 5 days, presented by Rust-Oleum Epoxy Shield. I'm Jerry Punch, along with Mike Mayock and Dave Ryan. Glad to have you with us here in Knoxville, Tennessee. Over 103,000 people at historic Neyland Stadium. Mike Lingua hoping to get off a little better punt than before. He was standing on his own 1-yard line. And gets off a pretty good one, a low line drive kick to Mark Jones at his own 48. Jones gets some blockers, 40, 45, got one man to beat. The punter comes over and they chase him down from behind. He had to slow up and is pushed out on the 25. Let's check in on Casey Clausen with Dave Ryan.
Yeah, Doc, just an update on the quarterback for Tennessee. He does have cramps, as you guys mentioned, behind both of his legs, a calf area for both legs for Casey Clausen. Preventative measures now in terms of the ice and the rub down to try to get him back in. They hope to have him return to this game today. As for Gerald Riggs, a sprained right ankle. He will not come back. Certainly they hope to have him for the next game.
Thank you, Dave. Clausen, they certainly want to be able to save him for what's get Marshall coming up on ESPN again next week. And then it gets pretty serious for Tennessee. Not that Marshall isn't serious. They're a very good football team. They go to Florida, down in the Swamp, on the 20th of September. South Carolina at home, and then at Auburn. So it gets to very serious in conference action for Tennessee very soon. Lawson trying to scramble away, and a nice shoestring tackle from behind by Brian Morris, number 55. Let's check in back in the studio.
All right, Jerry, let's check in on Birmingham Legion Field. Alabama hosting South Florida, beginning of the Mike Shula area. That is Shawn Williams settling under the punt. And Shawn, he smells end zone paint. 73 yards he'll go. And Bama increases its lead, 27-17.
All right, thank you, Matt. They're breathing a little bit easier. Not that much easier, but with that quick strike offense that South Florida has, they're just down by 10. 21-point game here for Tennessee. As we begin the fourth quarter, Clausen finds a receiver who dances away. That is Jason Swain, the true freshman, and James Sanders able to possibly save a touchdown down there at about the 23.
Talking with Pat Washington a little bit about his freshman wideouts, and Robert Meacham is one they felt was a really talented young man, but he got hurt last week. The next guy in for them as far as freshmen is they wanted to get Jason Swain's feet wet a little bit. He's a talented, physical wide receiver that'll kind of remind you of some of their other guys. A Willie Gall, a big, tough, physical kid.
You mentioned Meacham. They got him on signing. They thought he might be going to Oklahoma, stole him away from the Sooners. That pass is overthrown over the middle. They got Swain, you mentioned, from Alabama. The All-American Brett Smith from Arkansas, and a super prep all-region pick, Bill Grimes from Florida, from Georgia, I should say. Those are the freshman receivers they recruited last year.
And here's a sophomore, Payton, C.J. Payton. It's an in-and-out little bracket coverage right there. The ball was thrown high. Payton can't come down with it. Payton, another kid that was a high school quarterback. So what they're doing at the wide receiver position right now at Tennessee is they're trying to get athletes out there and playmakers. And I think after one game, you could certainly say that James Banks is the guy that they're looking for, the go-to guy early in the year.
Okay, Will Hoyt is missed from 30 and 34. Gets this one up in the air, and it is good. So good for that young man, and good for Philip Fulmer, who was the first guy to meet him when he comes off the field. Philip with a big handshake. Good for you, Philip, sticking with a young kicker. That'll do worlds of good for that young man's confidence. He is good from 40 yards away. It is now 24-zip Tennessee. And back in Knoxville, Tennessee, 24-0 Volunteers on that 40-yard field goal. Lots of college football to come your way tonight. Presented by Rust-Oleum Epoxy Shield, 7:45 Eastern on ESPN. Colorado and Colorado State taking place from Denver. And at 9 o'clock Eastern time, Oregon heads to Starkville, Mississippi. And Jackie Sherrill's Mississippi State team on ESPN2. For more, log on to ESPN.com. Ryan Fusco, the young man who was the soccer player from nearby Memphis, went out to Arizona, then redshirted, spent a year at a community college, just came on about a week and a half ago, and they are very impressed with the strength of his leg as he kicks that one about 3 yards deep in the end zone. Bernard Berry, and who else will take it? And he escapes a pretty good blow at about the 10-yard line and scampers up over the 25.
Berrien took quite a shot there, Jerry. Never comes out of the game offensively and on special teams. And it just kind of reinforces once again the total domination of this defense by Tennessee. They can't seem to get the ball to Berrien, and he's the guy who's got to make a play for Fresno State.
We might mention, we certainly had mentioned it earlier, but it's worth referencing again. Well, after this play, I'll tell you that Fresno State is missing two of their heavyweights in the offensive line. And those were major, major losses. And they had two dogs go down about a week and a half ago. Logan Mankins, the Outland Trophy candidate, All-American left tackle, unable to play. Had an ACL tear in his right knee on August 12th. And D'Artagnan Shack, their starting right guard, should be back, they hope, for the Oregon State game on September 5th. When Mike Riley's guys come into town, but those two guys are huge losses for this very inexperienced offensive line for Fresno State.
And you can see they've had a grand total of 3 starts on their offensive line, all by one guy, Matt Stevenson. The other 4 guys haven't seen college football yet. That's a huge deal here.
Screen pass, well executed, but a couple of volunteers there to try to stop it. Dwayne Wright, the backup tailback, and Jabari Greer is there. Speaking of guys that are stepping in, there is Noah Puano, transferred from Long Beach City College. You think he's ever been around this many people in his life?
That attendance last year, by the way, was over about 10 games, 10,700, about 1,000 a game. He walks into this magnificent stadium in front of almost 104,000 people. We'll talk about culture shock.
He was the captain last year, by the way, at Long Beach City College. Voted most inspirational player. Done a pretty good job in his first start, or at least trying to, against Tennessee here. Grady back to pass, gets the pass away, and it'll be shy of the first down.
Even when he completes a pass, he's getting killed. There's just no protection today for Jeff Grady. 2 guys hit him as he released the ball, short of the first down.
Mentioned Grady started as at Wisconsin a year ago as a starter. Injured a hip. Came back against Wisconsin even though he was banged up and threw 21 of 42 for 238 yards and 3 touchdowns up at Camp Randall a year ago. Came back and goes injured against Oregon State. Basically had to sit out the rest of the year. He came back, but Pinniger already had the starting spot, and now he subs for Pinniger, who was injured about 10 days ago with a torn muscle in his chest. And that flag will be thrown for a delay of game by Fresno State. And they will push Mr. Lingua back. We told you that Tennessee has a history.
Dead ball. Delay of game. On the offense. 5-yard penalty. It remains 4th down.
Of delivering some great wide receivers over the years. And we're going to reflect back on some of those great names that have played here in Big Orange Country when we come back after this punt. 4th and 9 as Fresno State will kick it away. Lingua gets it away, and the fair catch is called for by Mark Jones. 24-0, 16th ranked Tennessee over Fresno State. When we come back and look at some of the history here in Tennessee football. Part of the Tennessee tradition, great quarterbacks. How about great receivers? Richmond Flowers sort of started it all, then the track star, the great hurdler Willie Gault. Tim McGee in the mid-'80s. Alvin Harper as we enter the 90s. Carl Pickens played both ways with MVP, the Cotton Bowl. And Peerless was priceless back in the late 90s. A great tradition at Tennessee for some awesome wide receivers. And there's a couple of young freshmen here, and one guy who's a quarterback who may just actually have become a wide receiver today in James Banks.
It is.
And can't stay on his feet. That's Jomo Fagan making the catch. Let's check in back in the studio again with Matt Weiner. Matt?
Jerry, Oklahoma State and Nebraska in a defensive battle in Lincoln. Third quarter, just a 7-3 game, and Tatum Bell just flat out dropped the football, put it on the turf. Barrett Rudd scoops and scores. The black shirts are on the board. Nebraska up by a field goal.
Wow, great one going on there, Lincoln, with the Cowboys and the Cornhuskers.
Frank Solich loses that home opener, man. He's from the fat to the fire, Jerry.
It'd be a tough one. You saw a moment ago on the bottom line. Ole Miss escaping up at Vanderbilt, a much improved Vanderbilt team. And Jabari Davis gets wrestled down by Dwayne Andrews, the backup middle linebacker. Well, we told you about the tradition that had ongoing here at Tennessee. How about, could this guy be the next one that comes along? James Banks, sophomore out of Indianapolis. 7 receptions for 80 yards, averaging over 11 yards a catch, and he had never caught a pass as a college receiver until today. What are the odds of him going back to quarterback?
He can kiss it goodbye till next spring.
They promised him, though, they would let him go back if he played receiver, and I will bet you they will honor that promise here in Tennessee.
All depends what kind of year he has. He might get a taste for it. You got a little fight down there. Got to be real careful about retaliating out there on the field if somebody takes a shot at you.
Some frustration. You heard Dave Ryan mention earlier. It was unseasonably warm here. The shadows now beginning to move across the field, cooling off a little bit. But the dog days of August here in Knoxville, Tennessee, temperatures in the low 90s, humidity up over 80%. Only the fourth time Tennessee has played an opener in the month of August. Philip Fulmer, by the way, is 3-0 in August. Larkins a handoff. He's got some quicks and some speed. Larkins dances out of bounds and will have the first down inside the 30-yard line. If you talk to the defensive players for Tennessee, those Simons, the Kevins out of California, they'll tell you this Larkins has a lot of moves. They like his ability.
No question. Watch his quickness. When he gets out here on the edge, you're going to see number 23, James Sanders, try and get up and make the play. Sanders, by the way, he flies, but watch what happens. One-on-one tackle. He's got to keep outside leverage. He barely gets a finger on Larkins. That's how quick that kid is.
Corey Larkins, first game when he was a freshman, 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter against Syracuse. And then they promptly switched him to defensive back a week later because they had a lot of pretty good running backs.
Yep.
Let's check in on the sidelines with Dave Ryan.
All right, we're joined by Bruce Wilkerson. Speaking of Tennessee greats who played here in the early 80s, and you blocked for Darryl Dickey and Tony Robinson, you were telling me a moment ago. You've seen some great blocking from the offensive line today. What have been your impressions of the O-line play for Tennessee?
My impressions is they're playing as a team, it seems like. You know, they're coming out and they're a unit. You know, offensive line is like a chain, and you're only as strong as your weakest link. So it seems like Coach Stevens is doing a good job with them and got them playing together. They've just got to continue to improve over the course of a season.
Jerry, let's watch this play. We'll come back to Bruce.
We will, Dave. Inside handoff, and nothing doing there for Jabari Davis. Great pursuit defense. Let's go back to Dave.
You played with some pretty great receivers, you told me a moment ago. We saw just a moment ago on the air here at ESPN2 some fantastic Tennessee receivers. What are your memories of the great receivers you played with?
Tim McGee was a guy in my class. Joey Klinkskeld was in my class. We had a guy by the name of Eric Swanson. So we had 3 real good receivers that year that we went down and beat Miami in the Sugar Bowl.
Jared, let's go back to you for one more question here for Bruce.
All right, 3rd and 9 for Tennessee. Clausen and company threatening again, and flags fly. Gonna move them back 5. Be 3rd and 14. So
dead ball. Full start in the offense. 5-yard penalty.
Philip Fulmer not liking that at all, and obviously former offensive lineman himself. He loves the play of these guys up front, but that's what hurt him a year ago. So many mistakes, and obviously they're up 24 points here, but in an SEC game, they can ill afford that when you're going in to score late. 3rd and 14, the slant, some running room for Tony Brown. Let's quickly go back down to
Bruce, 12-year NFL career, 2 Super Bowl appearances. What was the highlight of your pro career?
The highlight of my pro career was probably winning the Super Bowl 31 with the Green Bay Packers down in New Orleans. New Orleans is a fun city for a bowl game. I was fortunate enough to play there with University of Tennessee when we beat Miami, and then fortunate enough to win the Super Bowl there.
Guys, he's working in the aluminum business right now here in Tennessee.
Well, here's what an offensive lineman's got to love, I guess.
Yep.
I formation, 2 tight ends. Now they switch out. It's going to be a single back, 4 wide receivers, and a single tight end. As 4th and a couple for Tennessee. We'll see if they're going to try to pull them off, or will they run the play? Up to 24 points, they will run the play. Lawson looks and picked off. Great effort being picked off by Richard Marshall. 30, 25, 20. You're not going to catch Marshall. And Fresno State is on the board, and Philip Fulmer is fuming.
You can't throw that football. It's 4th down. 104,000 people wanted him to go for it, and I'll bet he regrets it now. That's the only way, Jerry, they can get back in the game, is making a throw like that.
2nd interception, 2nd ill-advised throw by Casey Clausen. An 80-yard interception return. by Richard Marshall, and Casey's got to be fuming. I know that guy is. He's got to be very, very irritated at the fact that that ball was thrown.
You've got to be aware of the game situation. And if you're a senior like Casey Clausen, the only way you let them back in is if you throw a ball late in the flat and the guy goes the whole way. You can't make that pass.
And the snap is not held, and Byzantiner will go down. And the extra point will fail. There's a look at the young man, Richard Washington, freshman from Los Angeles, California. Clausen, look at Washington closing. He's headed for the end zone 80 yards away. Fresno State has 6. And look at Richard Marshall, the redshirt freshman out of Los Angeles, highly talented recruit last year for Pat Hill's bunch, redshirt of the year ago, named Scout Team Defensive Player of the Year, has just picked off Casey Clausen and took it to the house for 80 yards away for the first points of the afternoon for Fresno State and the Bulldogs. Brett Byzantiner will kick it in the end zone. We'll show you once again this pass a moment ago by Casey Clausen.
Now remember, it's 4th and 3. Look where the defensive back is. He's about 5 yards off. He's not playing real deep. You've got to be aware as a quarterback that he can make a play. Marshall makes the break on the football. The receiver's got to be more physical coming back to the football also. So 2 mistakes. One's the quarterback and one's the wide receiver. And if you're Philip Fulmer, you got to blame yourself a little bit. 4th and 3. Instead of kicking the field goal, you go for the first down, and all of a sudden they go 80 the other way.
Well, remember, coming up next is LPGA Golf. Roger Twyble and company from Springfield, Illinois. The LPGA State Farm Classic coming up in just a little over 7 minutes of college football time. We'll be headed up to Illinois. Tennessee on offense again, and stacked up, nowhere to run, is Jabari Davis. Faiz Sateli, a defensive tackle there to make the stop.
Once again, if you're Fresno State, defensively, you've got to take chances. Scores 24-6. You've got just under 7 minutes left in the football game. You can't let them run the football because the game's over if they do. One sustained drive, it's over. You got to take chances. You got to go man up on the corners, and you got to try and make a play.
Well, I promise you, this Fresno State football team, when you talk to Pat Hill, and we talked to these players at their hotel yesterday, there is no quit in these guys. They understand what the charge is out in Fresno State. A lot of pride, a lot of desire. Davis breaks one to the inside and steps out of bounds. And we had a flag there. Might have been a little bit of a hold there by one of the receivers. They threw the flag in the vicinity of Chris Hannon, the receiver who was blocking downfield.
Fresno can't, it's a hold. Correct, Jerry. You can't lose contain like that if you're Fresno, though. Safety did a horrible job losing outside leverage. Basic fundamentals, and I guarantee Pat Hill, when they get in film session on Sunday and Monday, it's not going to be real pleasant.
Hold on the end of the run.
This football team of Pat Hill's heads home next Friday. They have Oregon State coming in, the Beavers of Mike Riley. Then they head to Oklahoma on September 13th out to Bob Stoops' Sooners. So it doesn't get much easier the next few weeks for these guys.
When you decide that you're going to challenge everybody, you leave yourself a little open to criticism. It's going to be tough.
Anybody, anywhere, anytime. That's sort of been the motto for Pat Hill. And he said he wanted to build this program the way Bobby Bowden built the one at Florida State by playing some legendary programs on their field and trying to play them close, and they have done that over the years. They've beaten some of these teams. Ball is loose. Fresno State scrambling for it at about the 28. Looks like Tennessee may have gotten back on it.
Basic fundamentals, the quarterback-center exchange. You've got a senior center and a senior quarterback. That can't happen in the first game of the season in the fourth quarter. You let them back in the game if you give it up right there. So that's two series in a row. Casey Clausen throws the interception, and now they've got a center quarterback exchange issue.
William Rebel, by the way, the backup fullback, falling on that football and saving possession for Tennessee. Less than 6 minutes to go here in Knoxville, and a nice cutback by Davis for the long game. Let's check in back in the studio in Matt Weiner.
All right, Jerry, Alabama achieving a little separation on South Florida. We showed you Sean Williams' 73-yard punt return. This one a little easier, 3 yards, just as much work. Bama up 33-17.
And the Crimson Tide starting to roll a little bit. And I'm sure that Mike Shula and company can maybe take a sigh of relief, because the South Florida is a very good football team, well coached, and they've given them certainly a game there in Alabama. We've got a 24-6 score here. Final 5 minutes and 16 seconds in Knoxville, Tennessee. Cutback Larkins got some speed, and a good tackle on Larkins by Faiz Sateli, who stayed home, stayed in his lane when he tried to cut back.
And I think if you're Philip Fulmer and you're Randy Sanders in this Tennessee offense, you've got to run the football now. Keep the clock moving. It's under 5 minutes. You've run the ball all day. Don't give them any reason to get back into this football game.
There's the rushing yards, and you might want to look away if you...
No, folks, it's not a misprint.
-1 for Pat Hales. I promise you that they will discuss that on the plane headed back to the San Joaquin Valley. But give a call to the Tennessee Volunteer defense, playing awfully well, awfully tough up front. Coming up next, LPGA State Farm Classic. Roger Twyble and company up in Springfield, Illinois. A lot of positives, we should say. We talked about the fact that Casey Clausen threw a couple of interceptions, but some positives, some questions answered for Tennessee's coaches. One was that offensive line, probably as healthy an offensive line as they've had. Michael Munoz told me it's as healthy as he's been since he's been here at Tennessee. He had a knee operation set out in 2001, was nicked up off and on last year, was in the hospital for a few days with an infection. But that offensive line for Tennessee, getting the job done early on. Great effort in the run game for Cedric Houston and company.
Jerry, just to kind of follow up on your point, last year they had so many injuries in that offensive line. The same unit didn't work 2 consecutive weeks until week 10 of the season.
It's 4th down.
4th and 4. There's a look at what happened last year. They lost 19 starters for a combined total of 71 games to injury. How in the world do you even field a football team? And they won 8 football games last year with all those injuries. And I think Philip Fulmer and those guys have to feel pretty good about the job they've done defensively. Those tackles, they had some concerns about. Dickerson and company have played pretty well.
The defensive line held up. They held up in the secondary corner where they were worried also.
Bernard Berrien trying to break one up over the 30-yard line. And Mike, I think there were some answers today, at least up front, offensively and defensively for the Tennessee Volunteers.
Yeah, I think if you're Phil Fulmer right now, you're very, very comfortable with what your offensive line did. Did a great job. They opened up holes. It didn't matter who the tailback was. They got the job done up front. Defensively, I thought that was the bigger concern. Those defensive tackles with no experience, I thought they held up real well, but let's not forget, those linebackers fly all over the field. They're fun to watch.
Absolutely. They've got a lot of athletes at linebacker that have come back from injury. They're great in the secondary, and John Chavis and those guys have done a phenomenal job getting the young defensive front ready to play after losing all 4 defensive linemen the last 2 years. What they did last year was just sensational. Pass up over the 40-yard line. That one going to Dwayne Wright. Well, we are in Knoxville, Tennessee, here at Neyland Stadium. 16th ranked Volunteers of Tennessee taking on Fresno State in their home opener here for the 2003 season. I'm Jerry Punch along with Mike Mayock and Dave Ryan. Glad to have you with us as we kick off, or continue, I should say, what has been a great college football weekend. Coming up next, LPGA Golf, the State Farm Classic from Illinois. 5 days, 13 games. Russ Oley in the Poxy Shield. Weekend here for Labor Day. A great way to begin college football. Our 20th anniversary for covering college football here on ESPN.
Real bad tackle by the back judge. Had him easy, Jerry. He had him and he let him go. Back judge doesn't get that kind of chance too often.
Well, as you look at Grady, who, by the way, if you just joined us, subbing for Pinniger, who is going to be out for a couple of weeks. And honestly, the young man at quarterback hasn't had a whole lot of time to think about throwing the football or doing much. They've had so much pressure coming from up front of Tennessee. Wide open Berry and down about the 32. We told you it doesn't get any easier for Fresno State. September 5th, that's next Friday, Oregon State comes to town over at Bulldog Stadium. At Oklahoma, Louisiana Tech. We had them on Thursday night against Miami. They're coming around, but as a football team, Portland State.
Look at all these words. At. They play 7 road games for the 5th consecutive year.
Last year, they didn't have a single home game in the entire month of September. And the Volunteers, well, I'll show you where they're headed. They're going to stay home against Marshall next week. And then it gets very, very serious in the conference at Florida, home to South Carolina, at Auburn. Georgia, they go to Alabama. They have Duke at home. They go to South Florida. That's going to be a good one against Miami, Florida, we had on Thursday night. Mississippi State and Vanderbilt at home, and they end up at Kentucky up in Lexington.
Yeah, their 4 toughest SEC games. We've got 3 on the road. Florida, Auburn, and Bama only hosting Georgia. That's a tough road to go.
Brady back to throw. Has another one almost picked off, and Berrien is tattooed as he tries to go up for the football, and Grady really favoring that left shoulder where he has just been battered and beaten all afternoon, has shown a tremendous amount of courage.
Yeah, speaking of tattooed, Berrien's not the only one that got hit on there. Grady has been hit every time he's thrown the ball today. Relentless pressure. This time they're only rushing 4. That wasn't really much of a hit there. That's a little weird what happened there.
Well, he's actually been holding that left shoulder for about a quarter and a half, and I think it's just really starting to get to him now because of the backup quarterback being injured. They don't have a whole lot of choice. He swings that one out to Dwayne Wright. Nice move by Wright to sidestep a tackle here in the final minute of this one. If you're tuning in expecting Goff, will be headed out to the LPGA State Farm Classic. And let's check in back in the studio one more time with Matt Weiner. Matt?
Jerry, Oklahoma State hasn't won in Lincoln since 1960, and it's starting to look like they're going to have to wait for their next victory there. Judd Davies punches it in from 3 out. Cornhuskers have opened up a 10-point lead late in the 3rd.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. Great college football coming up. We're going to head out to golf after this out to Springfield, Illinois. LPGA State Farm Classic. Roger Twyble and company.
And Fresno called a timeout for a couple of reasons. Also wanted its 4th down and 2.
Let's check in down on the sidelines with Dave Ryan.
As Jeff Grady was a Fresno State starting quarterback to begin last season, suffered 2 hip injuries early on, then he lost his job with Paul Pinniger. Keep in mind that Grady already has his undergrad degree in economics, and over the summer he was thinking about leaving Fresno to pursue his master's at another school, give up his 5th year of eligibility at Fresno State. It's a good thing with Pinniger getting hurt, they at least came back for this game.
Well, thank you, Dave. And Fresno State pushing and shoving, trying to play the physical battle here in the final minute to get to the first down sticks. They look like they're probably about a half a yard or maybe a 1.5 feet short. What a day for Cedric Houston. 19 carries, 161 yards, averaged 8.5. Battled thumb and thigh injuries a year ago. Rushed for almost 800 yards in 8 football games, but banged up. Comes back completely healthy this year to lead the running game for Tennessee and the Volunteers. Fresno State couldn't quite get there. That's sort of been the story today with this young offensive line for Pat Hill. But a very proud man with a program that is definitely on the rise. We told you he wants to play the people. He's playing the people at their sites. Marquee program. Said I visited Florida State and Bobby Bowden years ago and asked him, how did you get the program from where it was to where it is?
Yep.
He said, you got to go play people at their place and play them hard. Not be afraid to go there, and you occasionally beat some people. Well, Pat Hill has beaten some of those people. He has 5 wins over BCS schools. He is 5-2, now make it 5-3 over ranked teams in their last 8 football games.
And I think Pat Hill's one of those guys that really gets it. He's improved their academic average. You know, they've gone from a 2.2 to a 2.7. I think he gets it both on and off the field, and this program's in good hands.
And with this win, Philip Fulmer will move into a tie with former athletic director Doug Dickey here, 13th on the all-time SEC win leader record. Fulmer with 104 victories, 5th fastest coach in college football history to reach 100 wins. What a job Philip Fulmer has done here. Gets his first win in this, the first game of his 12th season at the helm of the Volunteers of Tennessee. Let's look at Philip Fulmer. Happy birthday, Philip. His birthday comes on Monday, and he gets a victory. Along with his daughter, they head off the field. He gets a victory in his very first game here in 2003. Once again, our final score, the Volunteers of Tennessee 24, Fresno State 6. Coming up next is the LPGA State Farm Classic from Springfield, Illinois. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more, log on to ESPN.com. For Mike Mayock, Dave Ryan, and our entire ESPN crew, I'm Jerry Punch saying good afternoon from Knoxville, Tennessee. Now, let's send you out to Springfield and the LPGA State Farm Classic. So long, everyone, from Knoxville and Neyland Stadium.